Hi guys, this is Shadow. Your help is needed to keep this channel going. Please support me so I can work more. Donation link below in the description. Chapter 1, Reborn. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. He has locked himself in the Royal Library's secret room. He was going to perform a forbidden ritual. The angry shouts of the guards who were pounding on the door with their heavy axes did not faze him. These doors were meant to keep people out. This ritual was his last hope. He didn't have enough data and was unsure if this would work. But he didn't have much time left. It's now or never. His lifespan was already over, and he would not live to see the morning's sun anyway. He could barely use his shaking hands to hold the black book and activate it with a drop of his blood when the iron doors were blasted open and the world turned white. The headache made him wake up. Where am I? Victor thought. Looking around him, he saw that he was laying on a big bed in the center of a lavish room with a high, decorated ceiling and ornamented wallpapers. He had succeeded. It was a huge gamble, but he pulled it off. He had just returned 200 years to the modern age, to the time when he was still a teenager. He is now in his old room. He lived in here when he was a kid. This is the mansion of his father, who is one of the elders of the von Wise family, one of the 5 hidden families who control the old continent. His name is Victor von Wise, one of the family heirs. His childhood here was not a happy one. Although he was one of the family's legitimate heirs, he had a weak body. He failed to master the family's secret art, which all the dissidents were required to practice. His failure led to him having lower status than his peers. After that, he was barely qualified in the coming-of-age ceremony, a ritual that every true von Wise has to go through. So he was assigned a minor role in the family where he was able to enjoy life for a few years. But his life changed when he was led to a trap by his enemies. And he had to break a family rule to save a friend. But in this kind of family, rules can't be broken. So he was kicked out and had to live the next 20 years in suffering and poverty. Then the reckoning night came. That's what they called it. That day when the rules of the world evolved. Numerous things changed that night, and one of them was his destiny. He was able to awaken his noble bloodline. When he returned to the family to prove himself and take what's rightfully his, it was too late. His family seemed to have angered some rising hero and were wiped out in one night, leaving the land where its mansions once stood tall a desolate ruin. No one survived, and all of his loved ones were dead. And he could do nothing. That guy was very powerful, another league type of powerful. He wandered around the new world as a loner for a few years, then settled down, fell in love, and had a family. But the past always hunted him. The one who annihilated his family back then found him. And from his mouth, Victor learned about what happened back then. That man, after wiping out the von Wise family, discovered the truth about their immortal bloodline. He wanted it for himself. But he had already ordered the death of everyone in the family. So he had been hunting for Victor ever since, and he had just found his prey. He captured Victor with his children and killed his wife who was deemed useless. Then he brutally extracted their essence blood using an artifact, leaving them to die. Victor survived thanks to a lucky chance, but he was hurt badly, and he knew that he would eventually die as he could feel the immortality granted by his bloodline was fading. He returned to his ancestral home and began to dig in the burnt ruins. He uncovered many secrets there and was able to extend his life by a few decades. But alas, no way to restore his bloodline. His family was only beginning to discover its marvelous uses when they were annihilated. He spent the next decade in research and study, and then, by a pure coincidence, he heard about the Black Book. People knew it was precious since it had the SSS rank artifact, but it was pretty much useless. Its power is time travel. But despite its enormous activation cost, you can only go back in time for 1 second if you use it, and you can only return in mind, not in body. For others, it could only serve as a collection and research item, an extravagant one at that. But, for him, who had seen a similar treasure in his travels and knew about a little bug, it was an amazing treasure. He had some hope at last. To go near the book, he had to take the job of a librarian in the Royal Library where it was kept, and after many years of hard work, he was able to get close enough to it to study it then activate it. Now he is back. He is going to live a fulfilled life. He will use his knowledge to create a power that no other can rival. And those who hurt him before would pay a heavy price, even if the world itself shelters them, like that guy. First things first, he thought. First, he has to set the things in the family right and prepare his cards for the reckoning at the same time. It's never too early to prepare. The reckoning signs are already there, but only those with good eyes and ears have noticed. The world today is like a child, who will hit puberty at that night. In the current world, the rules are yet to be solidified. The world is like a child who is still naive. Many people got their chances around this time, and now he is going to be the bad uncle who cheats this child. He searched under the pillow for his phone, and there it was, with its shiny gold-plated back. He remembers he used this during his first year in high school. It was a gift from his mother for finishing middle school. Looking at the time, it was now 5:16 a.m., the 21st of June. It was in the summer break, and he will have to start high school in September. But that was not the vital thing. What really matters is the coming-of-age ceremony, which will happen tonight. All pure-blood male members in the family would live under the care of their parents until they reach adulthood, where they would be taught family literature and martial arts. But after the ceremony, they would be granted resources depending on their test results and were expected to do family assignments in the outside world. Luckily he returned at the right time. If he was late by just one day, things would have been a little troublesome. He jumped out of bed, took off his shirt, and inspected his sickly body. Just as he remembered, he had a small stature, his skin as white as snow, and had a beautiful face. He inherited it from his mother. His silky hair is a dark shade of purple-gray inherited from his father. This purple hair is a unique feature in his family. There were many speculations and rumors about the reason for this color, but he knew it. He learned about it when it was too late. The unique otherworldly bloodline of his family. He has to awaken it as early as possible. Perhaps in the ceremony tonight, there will be a chance. Looking beyond the curtains, out of the huge window near his bed, he could see the expansive forests surrounding the mansion and vaguely glimpse at the roofs of his uncles' and relatives' mansions on the horizon. He could faintly make out the sound of sea waves in the distance. He was on an island, and this entire island was part of his family's base, which only the pure-blood descendants and their servants can live in. At precisely 6 o'clock a.m., there was a light knock on the door. A beautiful woman stepped in. Her name was Olivia, one of the maids in the mansion. He remembers her well. She was one of his father's trusted servants and maybe a little more than that. "Young master, I am here to wake you up. The master has instructed that you should be ready for breakfast at 6:30 in the first dining room." Victor nodded his head. "I understand. I will be there on time." The maid bowed, then stepped back and closed the door on her way out. He took a quick shower and then changed his clothes while recalling all the information about his family. His father had 3 official wives in addition to countless concubines and lovers. His mother was the second official wife of his father, and that is because of him, his brother, and 2 sisters. All of them have purple-gray hair and a pure bloodline. Only women who give birth to bloodline heirs are eligible to be wives. The 317th family rule dictates. When his father met his mother, she was just a little model who wanted to score with his super-rich father. But after she gave birth to his eldest sister, she was quickly canonized as an official wife. As for the children who have no bloodline, they are considered illegitimate. If they are talented, they would be given a chance to serve the family. If not, they would just be given some money and education, then left to live their lives. Many successful entrepreneurs and business owners are just illegitimate children from such families. Looking out of the window at the rising sun on the horizon over the forest, "It's time," he thought. A knock on the door. A petite young maid stepped in. She looked at him nervously. "Young master, do you need any help? The mistress asked me to lead you downstairs." "No, I am ready." "Let's go." Following the maid, he stepped out of the room and closed the door. Chapter 2, Breakfast. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Victor rarely met his father. So having breakfast with Theodore von Wise was not an insignificant occasion for him and his siblings, as Theodore was a very busy man. He had a lot of businesses and concubines to take care of. Stepping into the dining room, Victor looked around and could only sigh. His mother and two stepmothers are already in their positions next to the empty seat at the head of the table. His younger sister and two half-brothers were the two. His older siblings are already adults and have their own households and businesses to attend to. He adjusted his breathing, then cupped his hands and greeted his elders as per the family's tradition. "Good morning, first mother, second mother, third mother," he said with a nervous look on his face. He was not really nervous, but he had to act the part. At that age, he was a very timid young man. "Good morning, Victor. Come sit down by my side, your father is about to arrive. This will be your last official breakfast as a member of this household," said his biological mother, Lana Carlson von Wise, with a broad captivating smile. Although she was the second wife of his father, she was his favorite. His stepmothers didn't like her but couldn't do anything against her. His two older siblings have already fared magnificently during their coming-of-age ceremonies, and they now hold very good positions in the family's hierarchy. His step-sibling was staring at him with contempt in their eyes. He knew that neither they nor their mother held much respect towards him. If it was not for his mother's protection, he would have already been banished from the house. But after the ceremony tonight, she wouldn't be able to help him per family rules, and she wouldn't need to. He had his plans. Just when he reached his chair and prepared to sit down, his father entered the room with his maid Olivia and head butler George right behind him. George was both a very loyal and a very powerful man. It is said that he saved his father's life more than once. He helped Victor a lot in his past life when all others gave up on him. The butler moved the chair for his master, while Victor, his siblings, and his mother stood up in respect and greeted the head of the house. Theodore had purple hair, and a handsome face, with no trace of aging. All von Wise had long lives. "Are you ready for tonight's ceremony, Victor?" his father asked as he sat at the head of the table. "Yes, father," Victor answered in a low voice while keeping his head down. He has to be low-key, he reminded himself. "Good, we will set off right before noon, and no matter what's your results, you will be an adult after this. I hope you live up to my expectations," he said, but everyone in the family knew that his father had no expectations for him, ever since he failed to reach the initial stage of the secret hearts of the family. While all youngsters in the family would have already reached the fourth stage by the time for their ceremonies. "Father, can you tell us about the ceremony?" asked John, one of his step-brothers. His ceremony would be next year. John was the only son of his third mother. He is younger than him by 1 year. Their relationship was always strained as John always wanted to surpass Victor to get a better position for his mother. If it was just about this, Victor would not care, but John was a vicious beast who would stop at nothing. In his past life, John was one of the culprits of the scheme that caused his banishment. Theodore glared at him. "Don't ask stupid questions, John. You know quite well that the ceremony is a secret. You can only know it in detail when it's your time," his father rebuked. John flinched from his father's harsh stare, then he quickly found an excuse. "Father, it's just I am concerned about my brother's well-being." Will his life be in danger? Concerned Victor thought. He knew that his brothers and stepmothers could not wait for him to die. "There is always a risk," Theodore said while looking at his second wife who had a nervous look. "But where there is risk there is reward." "Father means that my brother would be in danger?" he asked while provoking Victor with his poisonous eyes. "As I said, the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward," Theodore said. John looked at Victor and sneered. "Did you hear, bother? You have to be careful." Victor could feel the malice in John's advice. He did not really care, but he acted as if he was frightened and kept his eyes to his plate, while his hand shook a bit, while he continued to have his breakfast in silence. After the meal, his father asked Victor to follow him to the study. Victor naturally knew what this was all about. Entering the lavish study, Theodore firmly closed the door, then ordered his son to sit by the heavy ebony desk while he sat behind it. "You have grown up," said Theodore. "After tonight you will be a full-grown von Wise. You should do your best not to disgrace the family's name. Your elder siblings have achieved great results in their ceremonies, while I don't expect you to do the same. At least promise me to do your best." His father glared at him with his piercing gaze. "I understand, father," Victor said. "Good. Now, listen well, Theodore said. It is customary in the family for the father to explain the true family rules and rituals for the candidate on the day of the ceremony. All the family rules you learned till now were made for a reason. It is to protect a secret so profound it can shake the foundation of the world, Theodore said while glaring at Victor's eyes, who had to fake a curious look on his face. You would not believe it. But the best way to explain it is like this. Theodore paused. Our world has video game rules. He added while glancing at the doubting shocked look on Victor's face. He continued, our ancestor discovered this truth during an expedition to the north 600 years ago. There, he found a cave, and in it, there was an orb. The orb glowed with a faint blue light, and when the ancestor touched it he was amazed at what he saw. A shimmering light veil appeared out of thin air with an alien script. He did not know what the letters were, but magically he could understand their meaning. It said player registered. In old times I would have had to explain what that meant to you, but now you probably guessed thanks to all the time you spent on your console games. Victor looked at his father as if he was questioning his sanity. He did have that look in his previous life, but today he understood the truth far better than his father. Yes, this world had video game rules. And as far as he knows, those rules seemed to be slowly integrating into this world. It can be said too that video games' emergence is a phenomenon related to these rules. Of course, our ancestor, Sir Nicholas von Wise, had no idea what that meant. But during his lifetime he was able to figure it out. He brought the ore back to this land and used it as a foundation to build his family. Later he discovered that not only his family had such an item, but there exist others too. The other 4 oligarchs? Asked Victor. Theodore nodded his head. That's how we dominate the world. Every artifact like this has its own rules for granting a player status. Sadly, only 1 of every 10 heirs in our family can succeed in becoming a player. Ours has something to do with many factors like bloodline and martial aptitude. And being a virgin is one factor in the assessment. For that reason all heirs are forbidden from being in a relationship before the ceremony. He said as he glared at Victor, who shrank his head. The player status granted by the orb enabled our family to be one of the strongest families in the world. The secret art that the youth practice is meant to increase the concentration of our bloodline so that we could have a better chance at becoming players. Unfortunately, you could not cultivate it, so your chances would not be good. Of course, he could not practice the art. What he discovered later is that his bloodline is already complete, more complete than his ancestor. He does not need such an art. On the contrary, practicing it is what made him sick and powerless. What he needed was an awakening art. Theodore looked at his son's confused face and continued as if he didn't care if Victor believed him or not. You would only have 1 chance for awakening using the awakening orb. The younger you are, the better. After touching the orb, it will test your will and bloodline. It will give you points to allocate depending on the results. You would then have to allocate these points as you do in a video game. You must allocate most of your points to the authority field, as it is the most important one. There will be 3 outcomes. If your points were not enough and your authority is 0, you simply die. About 50% of the candidates suffer instant death. Theodore said as if it was nothing, watching Victor's face turn white in shock. The second outcome is, if your authority is 1, you gain half player status, or what we call a semi-player. You will have some of the strength and perks of a player, but you will not be able to communicate with the world system or level up. The last case is an authority of 2 or more, and you would be labeled as a player, giving you a class and some skills. He explained to the shocked Victor. The higher your authority, the better. It will affect everything from your arts to how much you can level up and grow in the future. As for the other attributes and your class, if you gained 1, you are free to choose your own path. That's all I can tell you for now, and any further discussion will have to wait till after the ceremony. Are we clear? What about you, father? And what about my siblings? Victor asked with a half-believing look as if he didn't already know. I have an authority of 6 and I am a great warrior. After my ceremony, I had a good start with 3 levels of authority, something that few in the family could achieve, and after that, due to hard work and a certain opportunity, I was able to upgrade to this level. As for your siblings, you will have to ask them yourself. His father answered as if he did not want to waste his breath. It was not that Theodore hated Victor, It's just that he thought that Victor would probably lose his life in the ceremony, and can't help him. Every pureblood von Wise has to go through the ritual, that's the rules, and the rules can't be broken. His father stood up and looked out of the window with his back to Victor, probably hiding the worry in his eyes. Now go. Say goodbye to your mother and sister. And remember, don't reveal anything to anyone. If anything leaked, you would be punished according to family rules. Yes, father. Victor stepped back while almost failing to hide the shake in his hands. They were not shakes of fear, but excitement. Chapter 3, The Reduction Rune. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. After leaving the study, Victor's first action was to return to his room. He instructed the maids to pack the last of his luggage, and it will be shipped out after the ceremony. Then after the maids left, Victor sat on his bed and waited while thinking about his next step. This is going to be another gamble, he thought. He had a reason to wait, as there is an important item that he needs for his plan, and this item will be delivered to him at any moment now. He did not have to wait for long, as a few minutes later, the room's heavy door was pushed open. Ha ha, brother, I hope you get a good result tonight. I heard about it from my big brother. The ceremony is very dangerous and half of the candidates would die every year. A youth with curly purple hair swaggered into the room with an evil grin, and behind him, an exquisite maid followed in silence. This was Luke von Wise, the youngest son of the first lady of the house and Victor's last step-brother. The maid behind him was his personal maid and bodyguard. If outsiders saw her, they would presume she was Luke's little lover. But Victor knew that the heirs of the von Wise family were forbidden from getting laid before the coming-of-age ceremony, as it is said to dilute their bloodline. As for poor Victor, he was forbidden from recruiting a maid till his ceremony because he was almost seduced by one when he hit puberty a few years back. That accident ruined his reputation and he was punished very hard by his father and had to spend the rest of his middle school days in an all-boys aristocratic boarding school. Victor looked at Luke and smiled. I am not afraid. I will make our father proud like my elder brother and sister. I heard that big brother Rex's results were barely passable, and father was so angry with him that he sent him to be a part of the Dark Jungle expedition. He said. The first mother has 3 children, the eldest, Max, is a player, while the second, Rex, is just a semi-player, and his father was very disappointed with him back then. And the youngest was Luke, who has yet to be an adult. This lineup put Luke's mother in a tight spot. Victor's mother already has 2 full players' offspring, and there were talks in the family for her to be the main wife. Although his mothers and younger siblings have no knowledge about the hidden rules of the world and who is a player and who is not, they know that some heirs would be more valued than others after the ceremony, and it has to do with some secret test and bloodline purity. Hearing Victor's ridicule, Luke's face turned red with anger. But he was no fool and knew that he can only swallow this bad breath. He can't screw up his brother's plan. He knew that using the thing his father gave him, he can ensure that Victor will disappear forever. Brother, there is no need for such talk, said Luke with a silly smile. I just came here to wish you a good ceremony, and hope that you will succeed. With that, Luke stepped forward and gave Victor a tight hug, then backed away awkwardly and left the room in a hurry. If his father saw that right now, he would really believe that Luke cared about his brother. Watching her master leave, the maid followed him quickly without forgetting to give a bow to Victor before closing the door on her way out. Victor stared at the door for a moment, then burst into a laugh. Ha ha, this stupid bother of mine can really act. In my past life I did truly fall for this stupid play of his. Reaching his hand into his jacket's pocket, he took out a pure black octagonal piece of jade. This thing was put there by Luke when he hugged him. At last, in my past life I was screwed by this rune. But now this will be the key to my success, thought Victor. This jade is called Reduction Rune, and it was a very rare SSS item. Its effect is the permanent reduction by 1 of any attribute defined by the user. However, it also has the passive effect of reducing all the attributes when equipped. Of course, his brother did not know what was this thing nor how to activate it, but he seemed to have figured out that this stone will make the holder weaker. It was probably one of his elder stepbrother's plans. He planned to use it to lower Victor's chances of completing the ritual. In his past life, his brother's plan only half succeeded. With his qualification and bloodline, Victor should have been able to be a full player with ease, but he fell short by just a few points because of the rune, and could only be a semi-player with a very weak position in the family. Victor knew about this plan later, when Luke bragged in front of him on the night of his banishment. He still remembers the ugly smirk on his face to this day. Looking at the jade, Victor sighed. This thing was kept by him in his past life as a memento before discovering its real use. This rune will be the essential key to his next step. Victor took a leather bag from his closet, then put the rune in it, before returning it to his pocket. Holding the rune in a bag will not be considered equipping. Then he adjusted his clothes, and gave his room one last look, then went downstairs. His mother was waiting for him in the hallway. She gave him a tight hug. "Be careful, and no matter what, you have to return alive," she said with tears in the corner of her eyes. She had to act strong. "Yes, mother," he replied while feeling the warmth in his heart. His mother is the only one who has never lost hope in him. His little sister Lara peeked from behind his mother and looked sadly at her brother. "Goodbye, brother," she said, and ran away. But Victor noticed the tears in her eyes as well. Likely she thought that she would never see her brother again. It's probably Luke's instigation. He will take his revenge on him back later. "Are you ready? Let's go. We have a long trip." His father's sound came from the back. "Yes, father," said Victor. Then, after letting go of his mother, he walked out of the mansion's door in silence, not failing to notice the shadows of his stepbrothers who were smirking while peeking at him from the windows upstairs. Chapter 4. The Trip. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. After leaving the mansion, Victor and Theodore took a 15-minute trip by car to the island's harbor, where a fully serviced yacht was waiting for them. After boarding the yacht, Victor sat down on a fancy seat and looked out of the window to watch the waves, while trying to relax. After a few moments, his father, who was talking to the captain about the course of the trip, entered the cabin and sat on the adjacent seat. "We will be there in 3 hours. The captain informed me that we need to make a detour to pick up some other participants," said Theodore. "Try to relax your mind. It will be over soon," he added. The yacht soon started its engines and began its trip. The family owns an entire archipelago where each island contains facilities that have specified functions such as training, research, or residential. On normal occasions, the residential islands would house the lonely wives and their children with some servants. The husbands are busy doing business or searching for other potential wives on the mainland. Their trip's destination is the central island. It houses the main seat of the family, the elders' halls, as well as the treasury and punishment halls. The ceremony will take place at the ancestral hall at the center of the island. Victor watched the waves go by as he reminisced about this same trip in his past life. He was so nervous back then that he could not focus on anything. Turning his head from the window, he began to observe the maids who were busy preparing drinks for him and his father. While they are called servants by the family, in fact, these girls were all slaves of his family. The family has brought and trained them from their youth so that they would be faithful and loyal to their masters. His father caught his look and could not help but to chuckle a little. "Don't worry, after the ceremony, if you managed to survive, depending on your rank you would be given a chance to get your own servants. But if you didn't, I will let a few of these girls accompany you in your grave," he said with an evil smile, making the girls shiver in fright. Victor nodded his head, then took a sip of his freshly brewed coffee that a shivering servant girl just handed him. His father's poor sense of humor never changes. But he knew that he was subtly encouraging him. Like any father, he wished for his son's success. Soon, the yacht came to a stop in a small harbor, and a few passengers boarded. 2 girls and 3 boys. They were Victor's cousins from some branch families. They will also join the ceremony today. They saluted Theodore and Victor, then sat down in their seats nervously. They did not dare make a noise in the presence of the main branch members. The family hierarchy was engraved in their bones. After a few similar stops, the small cabin was almost full, but still, no one dared to sit near the father and son. The ceremony will include family members from different classes, including the direct heirs, talented disciples and servants, who had to spend their trip on the deck. The yacht made one last stop, however. This time only 2 passengers boarded. one middle-aged man with a pointy beard and one burly proud youth who had his nose pointed to the ceiling. When they entered the cabin, all the 20 participants seated inside stood up and saluted in respect, but the two didn't even look at them, just continued their way till they reached Victor and his father. They were Victor's third uncle Patrick and his son Ron, who saluted Theodore, then sat down with his father on two opposing seats while giving Victor a mocking look as if he was looking at a dead man. "It's been a while, Theodore. How is your business these days?" Patrick said to Victor's father while completely ignoring him. "It's all good. You have been busy yourself lately. I heard you opened a new pharmaceutical company." Theodore replied, "I see your son has grown up." He examined Ron. "He should be able to succeed today, like his big brother did back then, I hope." "Yes, he has already reached the third level of the secret art. I have high expectations for him," Patrick said while casting an approving gaze onto his son, who raised his chin, trying to look valiant. While still ignoring Victor, Patrick continued, "I heard you found a new concubine. It had been said that she is already pregnant. You already have 3 wives and 3 player sons. Aren't you planning on stopping with this wife hunting routine? It's not good for your health?" he asked with little annoyance and envy on his face. "Why would I?" answered Theodore with a proud look. "And it's not like I am actively hunting for wives, but I do run a media production company after all. Victor's grandfather, the current patriarch of the von Weiss family, has only one wife who gave birth to 5 sons and 1 daughter. Theodore, who was the 5th and youngest child, already have 3 wives and many heirs, while his older brothers only have 1 wife each and 1 or 2 qualified heirs. And it is not that they are faithful to their wives, but finding a spouse who gives birth to a purer blood heir is no easy feat. Each of his uncles has already slept with hundreds of women, but only a handful of women were suitable." Ron looked at his uncle Theodore with envy. "After the ceremony, he intends to sleep with 100 women in one go." Then he looked at Victor with contempt. "Not like this cripple who would probably die tonight," he thought. Victor, who was watching from the side, figured out exactly what Ron was thinking about. It was easy to tell from the perverted look in his eyes. But he knew that unfortunately Ron will not live past tonight. The ceremony hall's graveyard will be his resting ground. The cabin was silent for the remainder of the journey, as both Theodore and Patrick, despite their relaxed looks, were nervous for their sons, and the rest of the passengers dared not make any noise. It was almost late afternoon when the yacht came to its final destination. The central island was the biggest in the archipelago. It contained the central administration of the family as well as a fully functioning military base and an on-water airport. In fact, in the past World War, some idiot tried to invade the islands but ended up having his entire fleet decimated. Since then, no one dared to make a move on the family. The island looked as magnificent as ever, thought Victor as he gazed upon the towering mountain in the center of the island. There, in the awakening hall, he will take his first step. The yacht was anchored in the harbor, and the passengers stood up in respect while waiting for the main branch members to disembark first. The 2 father and son pairs soon went ashore, followed by the rest, where there was a full convoy of cars waiting for them, so they boarded them and headed up the central mountain to the ancestral hall. During the journey, Victor made sure to keep a timid, anxious look on his face, which made his cousins give him a disgusting look. Everyone had heard the rumors. They are better than him, they thought. But Victor did not care. He knew that many of them would not survive the ceremony, and that in this place, there exists many enemies and many opportunities. Chapter 5, The Girl. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Presumptuous, how dare you trespass into this hall? Don't you know your place? I am going to make an example out of you. When the convoy reached the outer gate of the ancestral hall, there were a lot of people gathered. Most of them were assistants and guards. There seemed to be some kind of trouble. An old man with a short white beard wearing an elder's purple cape was scolding a petite girl in a black dirty tight suit who had a dark black unkempt hair covering her face. She seemed to be injured, was shaking, and kept her face to the ground, anticipating her grim fate. The family never forgives rule breakers. Uncle Patrick stepped down from the car followed by the rest of the passengers. Looking at the gathered crowds, he quickly signaled one of the guards and asked him what's going on. "Master, this girl is a trainee slave from the Assassin's Hall. She was caught by the guards after trying to sneak into the ancestral hall." The bowing guard reported respectfully. Looking at the girl, Victor happens to remember such an incident from his past life and knew that the girl will be killed in a very gruesome way by his uncle because of the delay she caused. He was angry. Victor can't allow that to happen this time. This girl has a big secret, and if he put his hands on her, she can bring him huge benefits in the future. He had to act fast. He suddenly stepped forward before his uncle could act, and to the astonishment of his father and uncle, pulled the girl's hair back with his hand, revealing a delicate face covered by blood and dirt. It seems she had a fight with the guards. Impressive, he thought. Her features were not clear, but everyone could see how beautiful her black eyes were. "I like you, girl," he said in a perverted way to the astonished girl. Then he turned to his father and said, "Esteemed father, I wish for this girl to be my servant. As far as I know, every heir has the right to choose a servant before his ceremony, and this son had not yet chosen any. I would like to request that this girl would be my servant and attend to me before and during the ceremony." The elder was angered by this arrogant youth's interference and was about to blast him into pieces when he noticed Theodore and Patrick, who had black lines all over their foreheads. Everyone heard the rumors about Victor being a pervert, and this guy just proved the rumors true. Theodore did not know what Victor was playing at, and he was angry with him for causing such a fuss, but he had a face to keep, and his son's face was the same as his face. However, there will be punishment for Victor later. If he lived anyway, he thought, he will consider this Victor's final wish and fulfill it for him, he decided. So Theodore looked at the elder and said after he cleared his throat, "Elder Ross, excuse our interference in your duties. This is my son Victor, who has come to participate in the ceremony, and he seems to be interested in this girl." Then he looked at the girl. "I just heard that you trespassed onto the ancestral ground. May I know the reason?" he asked her. The elder did not like how Theodore is meddling in his job, but he can't be careless, as Theodore held a very prestigious position in the family, while he was just a management elder from a branch family. Looking harshly at the girl, he rebuked, "Answer tch, why were trespassing on the ancestral ground?" The girl shook while biting her little lip, then answered in a crystal voice, "Master Elder, I wanted to volunteer to be one of the servants attending for the young masters and try to attend the ceremony. While having a bloodline is important, some people have other talents and can pass the ceremony without it. But their chance is slim. From every 10 servants only one usually survives. The survivors who can awaken are usually those who have great talent and a huge amount of luck, and usually, only those servants who were forced by their masters or have a lot of courage attend the ceremony. If they can become players, they would no longer be treated badly. On the contrary, the standing would be better than a lot of the family's disciples. Theodore's butler George is such an example. He was Theodore's servant during the ceremony and he benefited greatly. The elder locked his eyebrows. There was an announcement for participation requests 2 weeks ago. Now the deadline has already passed. You should have been nominated by your hall master. It is not up to you, he said with annoyance. The girl kept biting her lip. My hall master chose not to accept my request, so I could only sneak here myself. I am really sorry, the girl said while bowing. There are usually some politics and schemes that go on in the side halls, so it's not unusual for some hall masters to have some agendas. And while it is a big chance for a mere slave to be able to become an awakened, only a few usually volunteers, and the rest is forced to participate by the elders. It seems like her hall master had other plans for her. Victor stepped forward, putting the girl behind his back, and said, "It does not matter, I like her. She is mine now." This young master has already decided. The elder wished he could slap this pervert youth, but he could only look at Theodore and Patrick for guidance. While it is unorthodox for such thing to happen right before the ceremony, every heir has the right to choose a servant before he becomes an adult, and Victor was forbidden by me previously from doing so as a punishment. Theodore said while thoroughly examining his son, "Now I will allow him to choose this girl as a servant, and using my authority as a grand elder, her hall master's permission would not be necessary. I believe this is still in accordance with the rules?" he questioned the elder. "Aye, it is in accordance with the rules." After some hesitation, the elder responded, "Then, let's consider this matter already done. As for the girl's punishment, it will be handled by Victor after the ceremony." Theodore confirmed before looking at his son with a strange light in his eyes. Why did Victor, who is usually timid, display such courage when facing the elder? Let's see. He may be able to survive this after all, he thought. What are we waiting for then? Now that this matter has concluded, let's head inside, Patrick interjected while glaring at Victor. We have duties to attend to, he said, then stepped towards the gate. With that, the crowd diverged, and the participants started heading inside the enormous bronze gate of the hall. After his father and uncle went in, Victor grabbed the delicate hand of the girl and followed them. Now you are mine, you better behave, or I will chop your head off myself, understood? He said to her while hurrying forward. Understood, young master. The girl gratefully looked at him and answered in a soft voice. Chapter 6, The Guy. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. The ancestral hall was not just one hall as its name suggests, but a complex array of buildings and preparation rooms. It also housed many important treasures and was attended around the clock by many guardians and family elders. Stepping into the entrance, Victor's father and uncle had to leave alone with the elder to prepare for their roles in the ceremony. The participants will have to wait for a while. Before leaving, Theodore gave his son one last examining look. Then without talking turned around and followed his older brother through one of the branching corridors. The ceremony participants were guided respectfully by one of the staff into a grand hall to wait. This hall was not empty as it was already full of other candidates who arrived before from other places. Some were sitting on lavish chairs around round tables discussing the ceremony and sipping on their drinks, while others were standing in respect and waiting nervously. In the family, there are two types of people, players, and non-players. Players are usually ranked according to their authority, level, and skills into elders, core members, inner members, and outer members, like sects do. While the non-players had 5 levels, first are the elders, followed the unawakened pure bloods of the main branch, the side branch heirs and those offspring who do not have pure bloodlines comes next, and after that comes the disciples. They are members who were not originally part of the main family but were adopted or accepted as disciples because of their talents, or special family needs for them. They had to change their family name to von Wise. In the last tier are the servants, who are the lowest caste in the family and mostly do not have any rights. Of course, within each tier and even between different tiers different levels exist, like the punishment hall disciples who only answer to their hall's master. And from every one of these tiers, there will be members participating in the ceremony. Participation for those of pure blood is mandatory, as for the rest it is optional because their mortality rate is much higher. While they were not expected to achieve great results and most likely would die, if even 1% were able to succeed they would add great power to the family, and they would be like the carp leaping over the dragon gate. In this hall, there were 30 members and disciples sitting around the tables in addition to about 80 servants standing in the back. To participate in the ceremony there are 2 conditions. The candidate must have been an adult for no longer than a year. The candidate must be a virgin. When Victor and Ron entered the hall, all the candidates gathered, looked at them and tensed up. Then everyone stood up and respectfully saluted. Victor and his cousin were the only main branch heirs participants, so their entrance exerted tremendous pressure on the others. Acknowledging the salute with a nod of his head, then finding an empty seat, Victor sat down casually while ignoring his cousin, who passed him with a glare, then went on to find another seat at the other end of the hall, followed by the rest of their convoy. They seemed to have made up their little minds to be on Ron's imaginary team. Victor grabbed the petite servant girl whom he had just acquired and ordered her to sit on his lap, which caused her ears to turn red in shame, but she could only obey. "I am sorry, I am a little dirty," she said while sitting under the astonished look of the observers. "She was not that heavy, I need to feed her more," thought Victor, who was actively confirming the rumor that he is a perverted young master to everyone around, and that was his plan. "That does not matter. What is your name?" he asked. He didn't know her name. "Lily, young master," she answered in a barely audible voice. As a servant she did not have a last name. "Why do you want to participate in the ceremony so bad as to break the rules?" he asked. "And why does your hall master forbids you?" "Looking at the spider tattooed on your neck, I can tell that you should be from the assassin's hall. You don't seem to be that great of a talent that he would not want to sacrifice you." he questioned while gently caressing the tattoo on her small white neck. Every hall and member in the family would tattoo their emblem on their lower members' necks so that they can be identified. But what only players knew was that this tattoo was created using an artifact and can be used to locate and eliminate the servant if needed. Victor would need the family's approval to change this tattoo on her to his own emblem after the ceremony. The girl hesitated a little, then answered his question. The hall's master intended to gift me to his son after the ceremony. But I hated him. He is a vicious and merciless man. I was tortured by him many times during our training. If ended up in his hand, my destiny will be worse than death. So I thought if I was able to succeed in the ceremony and was valued by some elder, the hall's master will find it hard to force me. Young master, you can look at him. He is also participating in the ceremony today. He is there in the back glaring daggers at you, she said while pointing with her pretty eyes. She did not tell the whole truth. He knew it, and she was trying to use him. He had too much experience to be lied to by a little girl, but he did not care, because he could guess what she wanted to do, and he does not mind helping her a little to gain his trust, so he will not expose her for now. Victor looked at the back of the room, matching his eyes with a remarkably normal brown-haired young man sitting lonely in the back. Really fits to be heir to the Assassin's Hall. If Victor didn't know about this guy, he would have never suspected that he wanted to murder him, let alone notice him at all. But Victor knew him. His name is Guy, and he will betray the family with his father, the Assassin's Hall master. In the future, in about 10 years probably, he has to find a chance to get rid of them. He returned his eyes to Lily, who was trying to act calm. This ceremony is very dangerous, and the Assassin's Hall's master is a branch family member. His son does not seem to have the bloodline. Is he really willing to sacrifice him for a chance of better status? Using his connection, he can easily arrange a manager or a supervisor position for him. He asked Lily, whispering in her blushed ear. Young master, that is exactly what I thought, she answered in a serious tone. He is his father's only child, and he is an evil person. Many of my sisters have suffered in his hands. She had a painful look in her eyes, but she lowered her voice. I heard a rumor. One night while one of my sisters was accompanying him, he was very drunk, and because he had to keep his virginity and couldn't sleep with her, he could only vent by abusing her. One time she was very hurt and told him that he should die in the ceremony, so he rebuked her and had a slip of tongue. He said that his father has acquired some kind of a rare pill and fed it to him, and he was pretty assured of his success. Luckily, he was very drunk back then and could not remember what he had said. If not, my sister and I would have been already dead by now. She shivered a little while saying that. A pill? Victor thought with a surprise. It can't be. No wonder they betrayed the family back then. It seems the family found out, so they had to escape and seek refuge with other families. He knew exactly what kind of pill it was, as there are only a handful of pills that can increase a candidate's awakening chance, and there is only one kind that can be feasibly if not cheaply acquired by them if they utilized the resources in their hall. But he can't accuse them without solid proof. And he didn't really need to. There are always many methods to get rid of some ants. This will have to wait till after the ceremony. But it did not mean he couldn't interfere with Guy's ceremony. He will have to use a little trick, and if his conclusions were correct, he may be able to cause him some trouble without being discovered. Looking at Guy, Victor smiled, then whispered in Lily's small ear, do you want him dead? I dare not, young master, she answered while keeping her face down. But he can hear the desire for revenge in her voice. Whatever, you just need to listen to me, and do exactly as I tell you to, he said, and waited for her to nod before he continued whispering in her ear, during the ritual that will happen next, make sure to focus on him, and although it would be painful, the moment you feel a piercing pain in your head, I want you to keep your eyes open looking at him and remind yourself with what he did to you and your sisters. You will need to do this for about a minute and no more, or it will affect your ritual. It will not be easy though. After that, you can return to focusing on your ritual and ignore him completely. Understood? He asked. Yes, young master, she answered. He could hear a hint of doubt in her voice. She did not understand how the ceremony worked nor what it implied. Even the family only had a very rudimentary and experimental knowledge about it. But he understood it well. He didn't spend all those years researching in vain. While he has no idea if this would be effective, if Guy was unlucky, he would end up in a coffin. Chapter 7, The Ceremony. 1. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Victor, who had Lily on his lap feeding him grapes, was enjoying his time under the envious gaze of the crowd. They all had one thought on their minds: damn you pervert, while the males had an additional thought: why not me? Most of these guys have never touched a girl before. In preparation for the ritual, after 2 hours, an elder entered the hall with 2 assistants. All the participants, including Victor, who swiftly held Lily in one arm and carried her to the ground, had to stand up and salute in respect. The elder was an old man with purplish-white hair. He wore a golden rope and held a wooden cane. Victor recognized him as one of the 3 keeper elders of the family. Keeper elders have the job of protecting the treasures and performing rituals, so they usually held a mage player class and were very strong. After an examining look at the participants, the elder began to speak. I want to welcome all of you to the family's awakening ceremony. While some of you have already been informed by your elders, most of you do not have an idea of what to expect, so listen carefully. I will make this brief, he said, then cleared his throat and continued. In a while, you would enter the Jade Hall, where the ritual will take place. You will sit down in a circle around the awakening orb. The higher your rank, the nearer you sit, he said while turning his head, looking at Victor and Ron. In the ritual, you will understand what awakening means. In the beginning, you will be tested by a light passing through your heads. But let me warn you, this test will be painful. It will feel like someone is poking your head with sharp needles at the beginning, so make sure not to resist it. It is the orb's power, examining your potential. It will take roughly 5 minutes, then you will be presented with a choice. He continued, I can only tell you to try to raise your authority as high as you can. He said while looking at the unsure gazes of the participants. What does he mean? They thought. Don't panic, you will figure it out easily. After the ritual, you would be required to keep in order and wait for further instructions, and I have been instructed to remind you that any troublemakers will be punished by death, he said. Victor could feel Lily beside him flinch, so he squeezed her little hand to assure her. Follow me. The elder ordered them, then turned around and stepped out of the hall, and the crowd quickly followed him, headed by Victor and Ron. Going through one gilded corridor after another, they reached a heavily guarded closed gate. At last, many elders were standing in formal ceremonial grabs. Victor's father and uncle were here too. They were going to take part in the ritual. The elder stopped and knocked on the door 3 times while speaking with an incomprehensible voice. Suddenly the gate shone with a faint blue halo and opened to reveal an oval hall decorated with green jade slabs on the walls and shiny black marble floor. In the center of the hall, placed on a raised pedestal, was a sky blue-colored fist-sized throbbing orb. It was as if there was a living heart inside of it. Looking at the orb, Victor could not help but remember his past life. At that time he had no knowledge of the mysteries of the world and could only be amazed by such treasure. He was so anxious back then he almost fainted. This mysterious orb is an A-level rare natural artifact. It has only one use: granting player status to its users. It's not the only way for someone to be a player. In fact, there are countless methods, but every method or artifact has its rules and bonuses. While this orb was not the best awakening artifact, it belonged to the top tier. And for the current him it was the only way available. And after awakening, an artifact like the orb will have no use for a player. Now go inside orderly and sit on the ground near the orb, and wait silently, the elder sternly said before moving to the side to grant passage to the participants. Ron moved forward first and found a suitable position near the orb, where he sat down and began to meditate, like someone trying to cram before an exam. Following him, Victor moved forward with the rest of the participants. He seemed to be undecided where to sit, but after more than half of the crowd were seated, he moved forward and ordered one random girl to move and make a place for him and his maid. The girl could only comply and find another place to sit down as she did not dare make any trouble. The reason Victor did this was to find a position where it would be easy for Lily to have direct sight of her target. So he only took his seat after Guy was seated. The distance from the orb did not really matter as long as he was inside its sphere of influence. When Lily took her seat behind him, he turned his head and winked at her. She responded by nodding. She knows what she had to do. After waiting a few moments for everyone to be seated, the elder pounded the ground with his cane. Then he began chanting with the rest of the elders who strode into the room and surrounded the participants, forming a polygon of light between their outstretched hands. The orb seems to respond with the throbbing blue light in it getting stronger every beat. Victor reached his hand to the back and tapped Lily on her legs, signaling her to be ready. Then it happened. A bluish-white light shot from the orb and filled the entire room, blinding everyone. The participants had no time for astonishment. Just as the light faded a little bit, they started to feel a piercing pain in their heads. It was as if the light itself was floating between their heads. There were a few who could not withstand it. They started to foam from their mouths, then fainted. This caused the elders to frown in disgust, but that's all they could do, as they were forbidden from interfering until the ritual was concluded. However, the people who nominated those weaklings would be demoted. Theodore silently looked at Victor and was relieved to find that he was just sitting there calmly and nothing bad happened to him. There may be a chance. He tried to convince himself, then returned to focus on the ritual. Victor put his hand in his pocket, then relaxed his mind, closed his eyes, and only held thought about his future plans to relax in a hot spring with Lily while waiting for the probing to end. This is the first part of the ceremony. The orb was now probing and examining the potential, suitability, and bloodline of every candidate. The orb does not differentiate between good and evil, it has no emotions, but it will always be affected by the rules of this world. It is like a machine executing its program. Just as the pain started to fade away, Victor silently used his hand to take the little black jade from the leather bag inside his jacket and hold it firmly in his hand. Now it can be considered equipped and the test is already over, so it will have no bad effect on the results. After just a few moments, the probing was over. Victor opened his eyes to find himself in a black infinite void. The test was finished and this is now the second phase of the ceremony, the points allocation. Chapter 8, The Ceremony. 2. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Welcome player. Analyzing input data finished. Analyzing test results finished. You have successfully awakened as a player. Now you are required to allocate your points to your attributes. Depending on your allocation, you will be offered a class. You have 1 hour to complete your application. If not, your account will be permanently terminated. Player points results. Alive, plus 10p. AAA level bloodline 100%, plus 1500p. Awakening 0%, 0p. Human, plus 30p. Virgin, plus 500p. Young, plus 200p. Martial ARTS potential F, plus 007p. Mystic ARTS potential D, plus 320p. Destiny potential E, plus 20p. Your total, 2,587 points. Please allocate your points wisely. / base values can't be decreased. Player name, Victor equals Von Wise. Level 0, basic cost supply. Authority, 00 will affect your status and potential. Price, 1000p. Warning, 0 authority will result in account termination. Warning, need 02 authority to get a class and gain level and EXP. Strength, 07 will affect your strength and muscular power. Price, 10p. Intelligence, 13 will affect your ability to learn, think and perform. Mystic ARTS price, 10p. Agility, 09 will affect your maximum movement and arts performing speed. Price, 10p. Luck, 13 will affect your luck and chances. Price, 40p max, 10 per level. Charm, 15 will affect how your look and charisma. Price, 30p max, 10 per level. Order, 10 price, 50p max, 10 per level. Victor was suspended in the endless void, looked at the shimmering blue screen in front of him. So this is his test results. 2,587 points. It should be enough for him to exchange for 2 levels of authority. In his past life, He could only get half of these points because of the reduction runes equipment effect, which halved his potential and consequently his allocated points in the test. So he could only get a level 1 authority and ended up as a semi-player. A player couldn't get a chance to increase his authority until he leveled up or used some kind of treasure, which he couldn't do or get because of the authority levels limit. His chance came 70 years later, on the Night of Reckoning, when all the players gained 2 additional authority levels as a reward for a hidden mission about being a player before the reckoning. As for those players who could not allocate at least 1,000 allocation points, they were out of luck. Their account will be terminated, which means permanent death. Not even their souls will survive. Now, how should he allocate these points? If he used 2,000 points to buy 2 authority points, he will be left with 587 to use for other attributes. But he is going to take a gamble, so after little thought he allocated his points as authority, 00, strength, 07 plus 44, intelligence, 13 plus 50, agility, 09 plus 44, luck, 13 plus 10, charm, 15 plus 10, order, 10 plus 10, EXP, 7,000, 10,000 till level 1. Warning: your authority is 0. Are you sure you want to continue? Yes, no. Victor looked at the shimmering screen and contemplated. The most important attribute is authority, as it affects everything from classes and skills availability to level limits. In addition to that, some treasures and skills could only be used if he has sufficient authority. It was not written on the screen, but a player can only level 10 levels per authority point, and increasing authority would require a huge amount of allocation points. For example, all the players who have 2 authority are capped at level 20, and they cannot level up without increasing their authority. His father was lucky and got more than 3,000 points in his ceremony, so he was able to exchange for a level 3 authority, which paved his road to become a great elder. Then he used all his powers to get treasures and complete dangerous missions, and was able to get to authority 6 just last year. The awakening is the only chance a player gets to edit his points directly. After that, there are only 3 methods to increase the attributes. First, the attributes points would be increased by random value each time he levels up, but this value usually depends on luck. The second method is by training. Someone who wasted most of his time on the battlefield will naturally get his strength increased slowly, and someone who spends his time studying will have his intelligence increased. Although this method is not very efficient, as the increase tends to be minimal, many strong players rose to power using it, thanks to their perseverance. The last method is using treasures, forbidden arts, and completing missions, which depends on luck and the family's wealth and reach, like many pay-to-win games. As for the order, it will have a very important effect on growth and plays an important role after the reckoning. It is a little troublesome, and he has an easy way to increase it after the ceremony. Now it is time to gamble, he thought. While he believed that this method should work, he is gambling with his life by keeping the authority to 0. But this is the only way. It is just as his father said: with great risks comes great rewards. After taking a deep breath, he pressed yes. Player registered. Congratulations. Now processed data. Please wait. He felt his power and intelligence increase, and it was a very refreshing feeling, as every thought and sense of his has become sharper. Now he is a player, and he can use artifacts. No time to waste. He hastily felt his equipped artifact with his mind and quickly activated its one-time use effect and specified the authority attribute as its target. Although he couldn't see it, he felt the rune in his hand disintegrate. He knew it was a success and that its effect has been applied. Now, he could only wait. The screen went blank, then it shimmered and a new line appeared in front of Victor's eyes. Chapter 9. The results. 1. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Insufficient authority detected. Initialize player termination process. Thank you for participating. How can this be? He made sure to do as his father told him to. No, this can't be, he thought. I don't want to die. I can't die. I still have many great things to do, many beautiful girls to conquer. He tried to scream, but no voice came out of his mouth. He could only float there in the dark void waiting for his inevitable doom. Why? His father has assured him that the blood pill would allow him to have sufficient points. His body started to fade away as he could no longer feel his legs. Please, no, he thought. I was supposed to be a protagonist who tramples all his enemies under his feet, like in a fantasy novel. Why? Then in his last moments, he had a crazy idea. Could it be him? He did feel a slight murderous intent coming from him and that beach. No, that's impossible. No one can interfere with the test. Father assured me of that. And with that, full of questions and full of regrets, Guy's soul was completely disintegrated. His soulless body collapsed on the black marble floor in the Jade Hall. Termination complete. The shimmering blue screen displayed its last message in the empty void. Chapter 10, The Results. 2. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Warning, bug detected. Victor looked at the screen with a smirk. It seemed to have worked. A bug can only be used once, is the golden rule he was taught. All systems have bugs, and by exploiting those bugs players can gain enormous profits, like speedrunners finishing a video game in minutes, or abusing the auction system in an online game to get a lot of money. The world's system has bugs too, but they are well hidden, and the world is always searching for and fixing them. After a player activates a bug, it would be fixed pretty quickly. Users sometimes gain something from bugs and other times lose their lives because of them. Bugs fall into two categories. First, direct effect bugs. They are the bugs that affect a state or an attribute directly. For example, one player found a bug that made him double his strength 10 times, and started committing all kinds of crimes around the world. But his rampage ended after 3 days when the world rules found the bug and corrected it. That idiot died under the feet of more than 100 players, whom he angered by sleeping with their wives when they could do nothing to stop him. Victor still remembers that guy, and if truth be told, it was a real achievement to sleep with all of those women in just 3 days. Maybe he got an achievement for that. This bug no longer works after that, and these kinds of bugs are rarely useful. The second is indirect effect bugs. This type is like finding a loophole in a mission's objective to clear it, or passing through a wall to bypass the boss and getting to the treasure room in a dungeon. Although the bug would be fixed, that will not affect the player as the rewards would have been long acquired. Most useful bugs are like these, but they depend mostly on luck. Bug fixing routine initiated. Bug fixed, val, 0 to val equals 0. Correcting player data. The screen was continuously updating as Victor crossed his fingers and waited. This might not work. He knew that well, but even so, he gambled. Not because he is reckless but because he was from the future, and he knows well how to count the cards while gambling. Now is the moment of truth. The cards are about to be flipped. With a double beep, a second screen suddenly appeared. But this one was in his mind. Alert. The agent./system11C54H/ reported an error 401 and is actively trying to modify your attribute authority. Do you want to grant him access? Yes, no. Looking at this, Victor smiled. His assumptions were correct and he won the gamble. No, a better way of saying it would be he beat the house. He pressed number, failed, insufficient system authority. Could not correct data. Error catching routine finished. Bug fixing routine terminated. Resuming operation. What he did was to use the SSS level reduction rune on the authority attribute which he intentionally left to be 0. He had to use the rune at an exact point of time, when even if the world tried to correct its value, it would be too late. The rune reduced the attribute from 0 to -1, and in a system that does not have an authority value of -1, there is one natural result, and that is what computer scientists call an underflow, which meant that the value rotated and became the maximum possible. He now has more authority than the system itself, so even when the world found the bug and tried to correct it, it couldn't modify his attributes. Congratulations, data registered. Name, Victor equals Von Wees. Level, 0. Authority, inverted question mark 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 inverted question mark. Ha ha ha, Victor couldn't stop laughing. He really did it. In his past life, Such a bug does not exist because every creature from birth and all the living ones would be at authority 1 at the very least after the reckoning. But now he is the creature with the highest authority in the world. This does not mean he can do what he wants, as the rules of the world should always be followed, just like how you might get a god mode in a video game, but if your save files get corrupted you will lose all your progress. Now, it's time for me to exploit my new authority, he thought. Looking at the screen, class options were generated based on current level and authority. Please choose a class and 5 skills. You have 351 base classes to choose from. You have 3,587,741 skills to choose from. Great, he thought. Last time he did not get to choose a class and only had 2 skills. Usually, a player would only get to choose from a set of 10 or 15 skills, and 1 to 3 classes max. The class and skill slots are limited by level, but the available skills are set according to the authority. Now, what should he choose? Looking at top skills like God's Fist, or the Dragon's Charge, Victor sighed. While he can learn those, but he wouldn't be able to use them as they require high strength or intelligence attributes and attainments to activate. So he focused on the authority-based skills. There were many that he had never heard about before. So that's how, he thought as he browsed them one after another. After a while, he made his mind up and chose his skills. Admin Appraisal, SSS rank, Appraisal skill, allows a player to see the truth of the world, limited by authority and level. Admin Merchant SSS rank passive, allows the player to act as if he had trading class. He can trade with and monitor all merchant class players through the system, in addition to privileged access to system merchandise. Limited by authority. Blood Seal, SS rank, he who drinks your blood's essence voluntarily will become your blood slave. /2 slots, can only enslave lower authority beings. Contractor of Doom S rank, can sign a system enforceable contract with any other player. Second party approval required. Unlimited Disguise, SS rank, can disguise shape, voice, and attributes, limited by authority and level. That should suffice. He will not need fighting skills as he does not intend to fight personally, and because of his current attributes, he is already invincible in the human realm. Looking at his attributes: Strength, 51, Intelligence, 63, Agility, 53, Luck, 23, Charm, 25, Order, 20. A normal human male has about 10 points for each. So now Victor is 5 times stronger, 6 times smarter, and twice as good looking compared to a normal human being. There will be a chance for some more practical skills after he levels up, he thought. Now time to choose a class, and Victor already had one in mind. He wanted to choose a Dragon Disciple, one of the strongest and most diverse basic classes, as it offsets one of his major weaknesses, being a human. It turns him into a dragon as he levels it up to Dragon Master. But after seeing the list it only took him seconds to choose another one. This one required a lot of authority. He quickly chose it and smiled when he saw the 3 new skills it added. Good, with this I have hope of killing that guy now, he thought. Everything is set. He pressed OK. Player generation complete. Then the screen disappeared, and after a few moments, he could see he was back in the Jade Hall, where all the newly awakened players seemed to be opening their eyes in astonishment. They had the same question in their minds. Was that true? Is this world some kind of an RPG game? Did we succeed? No wonder no one was told what the ceremony was for them. It took about an hour to complete the ritual and choose a class, but for outsiders, it was merely a second. And it only took another second for a sudden loud scream to break the solemn silence in the hall. Chapter 11, The Results, 3. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Looking around, Victor could see that the one who screamed was a girl from a branch family. The boy next to her collapsed on her lap with blood rushing out of his mouth. He seemed to be her servant. Maybe there was something more between them. He noticed them before as they were with him on the yacht. This was not the only case, but the others were more composed when they saw the dead bodies of people with whom they have just had a drink. While there were some noises, they did not dare make much ruckus. Only about 60% of the participants survived. And by family standards, this was a very good result. as can be seen from the elder's big smiles. Victor was very surprised to see his cousin Ron has survived when he should have been dead. He did not appear to be in a good mood though. He should only be a semi-player. As for the reason why, who knows, maybe he was too stimulated when Victor was cuddling Lily on his lap earlier, that his bloodline awakened a little. His return has already started to change things. His predictions will not be as accurate in the future, but he long expected such results and did not care. Looking for Guy, he found him dead on the floor. Oh, not bad. Looks like my guess was correct, he thought. He turned to the left and looked at Lily, who was looking at him with a worshipping gaze. Oh, she survived too. Before he could say anything, the elder knocked on the floor with his cane, making the hall go silent once more. Now, I want to congratulate you all for completing the ritual. From now on you are real members of the Von Wise family. All of you should be able to see your status window on the edge of your vision. Try looking at it and it will come into focus. Only players can to interact with it. As for semi-players, they would only be able to observe it. On it you can see your current attributes. I want you to keep all these attributes a secret for now. After the evaluation you would be told what you can reveal. Now, stand up orderly and follow my assistant to the side hall, then wait for your names to be called, he said. The assistant was a fat middle-aged man in white robes. He was standing next to the elder, so he bowed down a little to everyone, then turned around and headed towards the exit, and the participants including Victor had to follow him quickly. While heading outside the hall, Victor looked at his father, who was standing with the other elder. Their eyes met. Theodore smiled and nodded to Victor. He seemed relieved by his son's survival. Victor nodded back, then turned and continued to follow the others. At the same time, many maids entered the hall and started cleaning up the bodies of the unfortunate participants. Reaching the waiting hall, everyone was surprised. This time there were seats and tables prepared for all the participants, even the servants, although their social status has not changed. Their position in the family is now different, and they would probably be promoted later. Sitting at a table for two, Victor ordered Lily to sit on his lap again, and she could only comply with her young master's unreasonable demands, so she sat with a blush on her face. This was not the first time anyway, and her feelings seemed to be a little different. After everyone was seated, the assistant glanced at Victor before shaking his head and informing the participants to wait for their names to be called. Then he left the hall in a hurry. A few seconds later, many maids entered with plates of well-prepared foods and drinks. It is time for them to relax a little and have a late lunch. Their ordeal was over, and what is left is the family's evaluation and rewards. Their next step in life would be decided after that. Now it was unknown who from the participants gained what class or authority. Usually only 10% becomes full players. But that did not stop many participants, and especially the servants, from going around to socialize with and congratulate the higher-ranked members. Cousin Ron already had a long line of admirers waiting to congratulate him. As for poor Victor, who had a bad reputation, to begin with, having a petite girl in his lap did not help his case, so no one came close to him. Looking at Lily on his lap, Victor activated his appraisal skill and looked at her status. Name, Lily. Level, 0. Abnormal status, slave. Weak class, shadow dancer. Authority, 3. Strength, 20. Intelligence, 22. Agility, 36. Luck, 11. Charm, 39. Order, 10. Skills, Shadow Cloak, A. Penetrating Dagger, A. Mesmerizing Dance, A. Area Inspect, S. Quick Step, B. Not bad at all, he thought. A level 3 authority is really amazing for a newbie player. Maybe she had some hidden bloodline or martial arts talent. But he needs some artifact to examine and verify those, as they were not system parameters. Looking at her pretty eyes staring back at him, he thought this little girl will be a great assassin in the future. Too bad she died too early in his past life. Young Master, Lily suddenly said, about what happened. No need to report, Victor interjected while patting her head. When they call me to the evaluation room you will follow me. I have already told you that you are mine no matter what your results are, he said, and be careful not to reveal any information. Walls have ears. He warned her not to ask about Guy's death. Yes, Young Master Lily bent her head down and answered in a low voice. In fact, she was very curious why looking at Guy for 1 minute resulted in his death. Was it just a coincidence? But Guy looked very assured of his success before the ritual. After a few minutes, one servant entered the room and called politely for Ron to follow him, so he left the room under the gaze of his admirers. Not many noticed, but there was a look of distress in his eyes. He was afraid of his father's rebuttal. For a servant, a semi-player status was a great result, but for someone from the main branch, it was a disgrace. Victor activated his skill and looked at Ron's status while he was leaving the hall. Name, Ronald equals Von Wise. Level, 0. Status, agitated. Bloodline awakening plus 0.5% per hour, 2 hours. Class, X. Authority, 1. Strength, 15. Intelligence, 12. Agility, 13. Luck, 5. Charm, 15. Order, 10. Skills, Tiger's Fist, D. Basic Sword Arts, F. His bloodline really started to awaken, Victor thought with a smile, but his attributes are pretty stranded, like mine in the past. He may have a chance if he completes the bloodline awakening though. Victor opened his mouth, and Lily, who was waiting for his signal, quickly inserted a seedless grape in it. This girl is really smart, he thought. I should lighten her punishment for breaking into the hall. Now he should think about how to present himself to the family. His attributes were pretty stunning, even without considering his authority, because he used the 2,000 points he should have wasted on the authority to buff the rest of his attributes. He closed his eyes as if taking a nap, then activated the disguise skill and began to adjust here and there so that he would present a normal status to the family. A good result would gain him a good position in the family, a shocking result would gain him a lot of enemies. A few minutes later, a servant entered the hall and called Victor's name, then politely asked him to follow. Victor commanded Lily to go with him and left the hall, with her holding his hand, under the scrutinizing gaze of his peers. Chapter 12. The Evaluation. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Following the servant, Victor and Lily were led through many corridors till they reached another grand door. 2 armored guards were standing there. One of the guards looked at them and said, "Only the heir Victor Von Wise was called, explain yourselves." Before the servant could speak, Victor stepped forward and answered with a clear voice, "Victor, son of Theodore Von Wise, is here for the evaluation. As per the regulation, I may bring my personal servant who attended the ceremony with me." The guard looked at him, then at Lily, before nodding and stepping aside, opening the door for them to proceed to the next room. Stepping inside the room, Victor could see a huge white jade slate placed in the middle, with the elders surrounding it. His father and uncle were the two. The look on his uncle's eyes was not very good, and he glared at Victor when he stepped inside the room. "You should be grateful," thought Victor, "I saved your son's life." If his uncle knew what he was thinking, he would probably vomit blood in rage. Behind the elders, sitting on the only chair in the room, was a middle-aged man with a heroic figure and only 2 strands of silver in his purplish-black hair. This was Marcos von Wise, his grandfather and the current patriarch of the family. Victor bowed and cupped his hands when he entered the room, while Lily behind him knelt with her head down as per family protocol. "Victor Von Wise greets the patriarch and the elders," he said in a clear voice. Said Marcus, "Both of you stand up," he ordered. Then started to inspect both of them with his eyes. "And who might this slave be?" he questioned. Before Victor could reply, Theodore stepped forward. "Esteemed father, this is the slave I just told you about. Victor helped her on a whim and took her as his follower, and it seems her luck was good, as she survived the ritual," he said. "Good. Let's start with her then." He looked at Lily and said, "Step forward, identify yourself, then place both of your hands on the inspection jade." Lily, a former apprentice of the Assassin's Hall, and currently young master's Victor Von Wise servant, she said, then moved forward nervously and placed her little hands on the jade slate. A faint light shone and passed through her. Then on the slate words magically appeared. Level 0. Shadow Dancer. Authority, 3. Strength, 20. Intelligence, 22. Agility, 36. Luck, 11. Charm, 39. Slave. Bloodline, SS rank, 100%. Not awakened. No record. Victor was surprised. An SS rank bloodline, not bad. I have to train her well, he thought with an evil grin, then looked at astonished elders who began to drool. Now it might be a little tricky to keep her. His grandfather stood up and moved closer to the slate as if he was not believing his eyes. Then turned and looked at her and began to inspect her thoroughly, and when he was about to start using his hands, ahem, Victor cleared his throat. Excuse me, esteemed grandfather, but Lily is already my property, he said, making Marcus look at him angrily and wanting to rebuke him, but he suddenly remembered the family rules. What Victor said is correct. The girl was his and no one can take it from him, not openly anyway. Looking at the girl with little reluctance, he let go and returned to his seat. You may step down, he told her. As for your assignment, it is up to your master since you are already his slave, but the family orders you to keep your bloodline hidden, he said in a cold voice. Theodore looked at Victor and shook his head as if to tell him to give up on her to please the patriarch. But Victor could also see his father's hand, which was hidden from the other's sight, was signaling to him, keep her for yourself. Now, what are you waiting for? Go test yourself. We don't have all day, Marcus rebuked Victor, who could only swallow his breath and move forward to the slate. Putting his hand on it, he could feel the warm current flowing through his hands. Then it glowed. Level 0. Supreme Merchant. Authority, 3. Strength, 21. Intelligence, 25. Agility, 20. Luck, 15. Charm, 20. Bloodline, AAA rank, 100%. Not awakened. Von Wise. His disguise skill worked. He chose to disguise his true class as a merchant, as he already has the admin merchant passive skill, and this class would allow him the freedom of movement and spare him from forcibly joining deadly missions. A merchant would usually be assigned to a city to oversee his own or family's business. Merchant players have the ability to make transactions across vast spaces with other merchants using a system market, and that makes them theoretically an important logistical asset. But right now this role is not very important, as there are no more than 30 merchants across the world, but after the reckoning, things would be different. Their most important role in purchasing items from the world system. To do that, he would need a system virtual currency known as coins. Normal players have no access to this store. To gain coins, 3 ways exist. The first is completing system missions, the second is trading from other players, and the third is selling raw materials to the system, which can also only be done by a merchant. The higher the level of the merchant, the more preferable the prices he would get. The elders didn't know what the Supreme means in the class title, but it can't be bad. Watching Victor complete the examination, the elders including his father was excited. Even the face of his angry grandfather relaxed a bit. Having an Authority 3 Supreme Merchant is a great addition to the family. In addition to that, having a 100% purity blood makes Victor a true bloodline holder belonging to a small group in the family who are highly valued and protected, as he might have a big chance of fully awakening his bloodline, and their offspring would have a big chance of having pure blood too. The only downside is that Victor's measured attributes are on the weaker side, and as a merchant, his attributes won't rise much as he levels up. Good, Marcos exclaimed. Victor, your luck was really good. You make me and your father proud. But your rank is higher than anticipated, so I have no assignment ready for you. He pondered for a moment, then continued. Looking at Theodore, he said, Theodore, you have a good son. How about you send him to Vane City? As far as I know, it is under your jurisdiction. Let him start a business there, or let him work part-time in your company while attending the elite academy there, he commanded. Then looked at Victor and Lily. You don't need to keep anything hidden. You may leave, he said. Victor looked at Marcus and wanted to curse at him. How could he not give him any reward? He is probably holding a grudge, or does he have some other plans for Lily? He thought. Knowing that no matter what he said the results would be the same, Victor decided to try to ask someone else for help, so he quickly saluted the elders and then left the room with Lily. Chapter 13, Meeting Grandma. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. After leaving the room, Victor was led to another hall where he should wait for his father until he finishes his duties before they can head back. Ron and a few other participants were already there, busy socializing. It seemed that Ron hid the fact that he was just a semi-player. Victor did not disturb them, and neither did they care about him. They were too busy sucking up to Ron. Victor sat down, and Lily naturally sat on his lap without him asking her to. Not bad, this girl is a fast learner, he thought. Then he asked one servant for a pen and a piece of paper, which he folded and put in his pocket after writing a few words on it. After a few minutes, an assistant soon came with a letter for Victor from his father, telling him that he would be staying here till the morning and that Victor should leave by himself and wait for him in the private villa down the mountain. Victor naturally knew the place, so he thanked the assistant and quickly headed outside with Lily. The ceremony began in the late afternoon, but it was already dark when they came out. Looking at the bright full moon illuminating the empty mountain road, he couldn't help but look at the sky and laugh loudly. Victor may have appeared composed, but he was very nervous all the time. If anything went wrong inside, he might have ended up as a corpse. Lily looked at him strangely, but she can understand his situation. As a director he was under great pressure and now he seems to have been relieved after fulfilling the expectations of his family. She thought. "Congratulations, young master," she said with a big smile. Victor looked at her and smiled, then slapped her on her butt and started walking up the mountain, which made her face turn red in shame. This new young master of her is a bully, so she wanted to change the subject before her young master gets any other strange ideas, but suddenly she noticed a very strange thing. "Young master, your esteemed father has ordered us to go down the mountain. May I inquire why are we heading up?" she asked. Victor stopped walking, then turned around to examine her, then slapped her butt again and continued climbing up. This made Lily's eyes tear up because of the injustice. She didn't do anything wrong, why slap her? Just before Lily, who was wondering if she should ask, opens her mouth, Victor spoke. "I am heading up the mountain because of you," he said solemnly. Lily was surprised. "Because of me? Why?" she asked in wonder, but he answered her with a serious question. "Do you want to keep following me or would you prefer to follow my grandfather, the so-called patriarch? I am sure he would welcome you with open arms and will not let you suffer any injustice if I were to give you to him. So me or him, whom do you prefer? Answer truthfully. No need for hesitation nor fear. No matter what answer you choose, I won't get angry," he said while facing forward and kept walking, not letting her see his expression. She pondered for a second, then answered firmly, "No matter what, I am young master's belonging, and I don't want to be touched by any other," she continued with a faint blush on her face. "The moment young master saved me and helped me exact revenge, I was already his," she said with her beautiful voice. Victor knew from experience that she did not lie, she was telling the truth, and that made him feel really touched. "Young master, according to the rules, no matter what the patriarch wants does not matter, it is your choice, right?" she asked with little tears in the corners of her eyes. "Does the young master wish to get rid of me?" The answer she was expecting did not come, but another spank on her butt did, a heavy one this time. She almost let out a shameful voice. "Young master, you promised you will not get angry," she exclaimed in shame. "I am not angry," he said while continuing his climb up the mountainous road. "It is just that this situation is very tricky, and I know that guy will never give up." "You mean the patriarch?" she exclaimed at the rude way her young master was calling his grandfather. "Who else?" he said. So she interjected, "But the family rules." "Ha ha, the rules have always had exceptions, and there are always back doors, just like how I saved you from a certain death earlier today," he said, and that made Lily a little shocked. If it is like that, her situation is really tricky. "So, young master, you can give up on me," she said with a downcast tone. "No, there is a better method," he firmly answered, then stopped and looked her in the eyes. "Lily, let me ask you a question. Do you know why most of the world's great leaders have secret mistresses or second wives? Because they have the power, the wealth, and no one would say no to them," she answered truthfully. "Exactly. Then why is it that my grandfather, the patriarch of one of the greatest families, he who can replace any president or king with a flick of his finger, only have one wife?" he asked with a smirk. "Is it family tradition, or is he deeply in love with your grandmother?" She wanted to ask, but then she corrected herself. No, all the elders and purebloods have numerous wives and lovers. So it can't be it, and all of them have favorite wives, and that did not stop them from having others. she thought with a soft voice. Then she got an idea but did not find the courage to say it because it was too outrageous. So Victor said it for her exactly. "He is afraid of his wife," he said, and that made Lily turn around to see if anyone around heard them. "Don't worry, I already used my skill so no one can hear us," he said. He has already begun using his disguise skill to hide their voice when they started their trip. As the mountain is crawling with family secret guards, Lily sighed with relief. "Young master, don't scare me like that again. Such matters could cause our death," she said as she have already discovered all the hidden eyes around them using her area inspect skill. He laughed. "If we want to restrain any schemes of my dear grandfather we have to act before he gets a chance to weave his web. So do you know where are we going?" he asked. "To meet your esteemed grandmother?" she asked while tilting his head. "To meet Grandma," Victor confirmed with a smile that did not reach his eyes. Chapter 14, Scamming Grandma. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. The truth was something he wouldn't tell Lily because he couldn't tell her from where he knew about it. It was something he pieced together after scavenging his family's ruins in the past. He has gained knowledge of many secrets back then. Some of them are hidden even from the top echelons of his family. They had no idea to what degree their family was penetrated with spies and enemies. If the family was not obliterated back then, it would have changed its name in a couple of years. But now he is back and he will make sure to save his family and make it all his at the same time. When Victor said his grandfather is afraid of his grandmother, he was not lying, but that was not the full truth. The patriarch was terrified by his wife, would be a more accurate sentence. Looking at the mountainous road and the green trees ahead of him, Victor thought about his namely grandfather Marcos. Very few people know that he does not come from the main family branch, but from a side branch family. It was his grandmother, the last living offspring of the last patriarch, who chose him and made him what he is today. For her to keep the power as a woman, she had to find a suitable male partner to act as a puppet patriarch for her, as females were forbidden from taking the head seat according to the rules. And in fact, Marcus is just one of his grandmother's husbands. And he was the weakest member of her harem. Theodore was not Marcos's son, but the son of one of the other family's masters who followed his grandmother. But no one knew about that, not even Marcos, as his grandmother kept such secrets under tight wraps. To get such information, he had to desecrate the graves and sample the DNA of his entire family. After the family's demise, this entire archipelago became a deserted land where only grave thieves and criminals roam with the beasts. His grandmother Anne von Wise is a very powerful woman, Victor thought. But he knew that every man or woman has something they desperately want or need, and he has now a method of getting exactly what she wants and getting himself rich in the process. Victor was prepared to expose a few of his secrets to his grandmother in order to gain her trust and support, as Marcos has already started his plan when he ordered Victor to go to school in Vane City. Yes, Marcos is that kind of a guy. He would stop at nothing to get what he wants, thought Victor. After walking for another 15 minutes while holding hands with Lily, he reached the gate of a grand mansion, surrounded by a fancily worked iron fence. Standing there on the door were two female guards, who had a purple hue in their hairs, purer bloods. "Stop right there," one of them said. "May I inquire about your identity and the reason you are here?" she asked in a slightly artificial polite tone. "And at this hour?" she continued after a pause as it was already late. Victor took out the folded piece of paper he prepared before leaving the hall and gave it to the guard. "I am the heir Victor von Wise, and this is my maid Lily. We wish to meet your mistress for a very important reason." The guard hesitated for a mere second before accepting the paper. "Please wait a moment," she said before signaling the other guard to keep watch over them, and heading inside the mansion. After 3 minutes, a sturdy female housekeeper walked out of the mansion with a guard. She looked at Victor and said, "Follow me please." Victor turned to Lily and said, "Wait for me." The housekeeper interrupted him. "The mistress asked for both of you," she said, then turned around and headed inside the fence. Victor and Lily followed after a brief hesitation. "Cheat, I made a big mistake," Victor thought as his face became very bitter. He really overestimated Marcus's courage. It seems he did not want Lily for himself but for his dear wife. The situation can still be salvaged, I hope, he thought. After walking through the lavish mansion's front yard and passing through the front door, they were guided into a lavish room, where Victor took the liberty to sit down on a comfy chair, while Lily stood quietly behind him. Lily still had some dirt and some blood traces on her face and her clothes, as she did not have a chance to clean up, while Victor's clothes were not very clean, as Lily was forced to sit on his lap a couple of times. After a few minutes, a beautiful woman with curly purple hair and a lavish black dress entered the room with two pretty handmaids. She looked about 30 years old, but Victor knew that she was at least 70. There were no aging marks on her face nor body. Her blood was fully awakened. She was Victor's grandmother, Anne von Wise. Looking at her entered the room, Victor and Lily quickly saluted in respect. Victor activated his appraisal skill, but after a split second he felt a piercing pain, so he deactivated it quickly, and coughed twice to hide the painful look on his face. It seems he used this skill too much today that it strained his eye, in addition to the fact that Anne's level is much higher than him. But that split second was enough for him to confirm the piece of information he wanted. ANN equals von Wise. Level, 15, 99. Abnormal status, poisoned, SS, mid. Authority, 09. Strength, 4? Question mark. Question mark. Question mark. Yes, the rumors he heard back then were true. She was poisoned. Anne looked at Victor briefly and examined Lily for a whole 10 minutes before looking back at Victor. What do you mean by this? She asked, and then threw a piece of paper to the ground. It was the same piece of paper he gave to the guard earlier. It reads a few words. I can get a White Lotus pill. Looking at it, Victor started talking. Esteemed grandmother, as grandfather may have already told you, I have awakened a supreme merchant class. And this allows me to have access to a random selection of system wares every month to buy, and it happened that this pill was one of them, and I wanted to inquire if my dear grandmother is interested in it. And how do you know that I may be interested in it? She asked. Well, the grandson happens to have attended your birthday this year and the previous one, and happened to notice that most of the present's grandma seems to favor had a detoxification effect, he explained. Oh. And since when are you proficient in drugs identification? She asked with a smile. Damn, he thought, this little one is well read. He answered with a few beads of sweat appearing on his forehead. Oh, she said. He knew that she did not fully believe him. But that does not matter, as she would want to get the pill first before grilling him. The price? She asked. 3 million coins, in addition to a promise from you that you would not deliberately hurt me in any way as long as I don't interfere with your business, he said firmly. Oh, but I already want this girl. Marcos has already sent a letter about her, she said, looking at Lily, who unconscionably flinched. But that would make me very hurt, he said with a pitiful look. And that made Lily's eyes sparkle with tears. Her young master is good to her. I know that grandmother wants to use her bloodline to breed a new kind of warriors for the family, right? He inquired, and his grandmother did not respond, and that made Lily flinch again. But there is no need, as I intend to take her as a wife so her children would still be parts of the family. He continued, as this was the only solution he can think of to convince his grandma. His grandmother looked back at him with a piercing eye. As far as I know, you already have a fiancé, and she can't stop you from having a few other wives, but she would not like that, she said with a smirk. She has already become an adult, so she should learn that you can't always have what you want. I will deal with it, he said. That fiancé of his is really troublesome. She is a slut, and he has to find a way to get rid of her. Oh, okay, I agree, his grandmother said. Shay urgently needs that pill. She has been poisoned for too long and her level has already declined to 15, if this goes on any further she might not be able to control the family. The White Lotus pill is a very rare medicine that can cure her completely. And just when she wanted to inquire when would Victor get the pill, he flashed a gold parchment in front of her, created by his contractor of doom skill and containing their agreement. After signing it, if any party broke it, they will have to face severe consequences. She knew what this was, and that made her surprised, as she always viewed Victor as some kind of a weakling, but today's events proved her wrong again and again. Seems like he is not useless after all, she thought. Maybe I should give him a chance to prove himself. Well, that's for later. She nodded her head. Okay, she said, but add a clause that the price you ask must be exactly the system's store price, she added with a smirk. She will not let him get away with any advantages. Victor flinched, then corrected the contract with a flick of his hand. Fine, that makes it 2 million coins. His grandmother glared at him. This piece of shit was about to scam her for 1 million coins. That is the family's revenue for one entire year. But she didn't scold him, as she was beginning to like this cunning grandson of her. She bit her finger and a purple drop of blood fell onto the contract, and Victor did the same. The contract shimmered with golden light then disappeared. The contract was done. She waved her hand and a system prompt appeared in Victor's head notifying him that 2 million coins have been added to his account. So he quickly operated his merchant administrator skill and bought one White Lotus pill for the listed price of 2 million coins. Then applied for a discount using his authority and got a 50% back, 1 million coins. I am rich now, he thought. After this, he has to wait 2 days to be able to use this skill again, as his level was still too low, and the transaction very big. But it was worth it. He took the pill out of the store window and it appeared in thin air, so he presented it to his grandmother who grabbed it immediately, and with a wave of her hand, Victor and Lily were thrown out of the house. I will not see you off, come visit me again when you have time. And be careful about your fiancé. Her parting words echoed in Victor's head, which was planted in the dirt outside of the mansion. He stood up with the help of Lily, who started dusting the dirt off him. He smiled at her, then slapped her on her little butt and said, "Let's go home." This trip was a success. "Yes, young master," Lily answered with a sweet smile. Chapter 15. An Unexpected Reward. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Going down the mountain was easy. Victor only had to ask one of the mansion's guards to find a car for him, so a luxurious car was quickly prepared to take them back. Victor quickly explained his destination to the female driver, who nodded her head in understanding and started the engine. Sitting in the back seat of the speeding car, Lily looked out of the window and watched the passing scenery while wondering if all of today's events were just a sweet dream that would end when she woke up. But Victor proved her wrong by suddenly laying down on the back seat and placing his legs against the window with his head on her lap. "Don't move around, I want to have a nap," he said. "Wake me up when the car stops." With that said, he closed his eyes and started snoring. Lily was very embarrassed. Her face turned as red as a tomato, and she did not know where to put her hands. But looking at the driver who faked not knowing what's happening in the back, she took a little breath to stabilize her shaking hands. Then she slowly began to caress Victor's head in her lap. Time flowed quickly, and after half an hour, they reached their destination. When the car stopped, Victor opened his eyes to meet Lily's, who was about to wake him up and caused her to have a blush on her face. "Young master, we have arrived," she said softly. He smiled at her, then quickly got up and out of the car. Facing him was 3 stories modern villa. Even though his father only stayed here a few nights every other month, it was well maintained. When he stepped down from the car, a tall man in a black uniform was waiting for him. It was George, his father's butler. Victor smiled and saluted him. "Uncle George, I did not expect to see you here. It is already late. You should be resting in bed instead of waiting for this youngster," he said with a smile. George was always good to him. Even after being kicked out of the family back then, he still received occasional help from him. "Young Master Victor, this is just my duty, please follow me," George said warmly, then guided them into the house. After stepping inside, George ordered the maids to escort Lily to the bath and arrange a new set of clothes for her, then requested that Victor follow him. Victor gave Lily a wink signaling her to follow the maid, then turned around and followed George into a side corridor leading to a well-lit study. Once inside, George took out a black briefcase. "In here, you will find your new credentials and the documents for some properties and businesses the family granted you. It is your reward," George said as he handed it to Victor. "Oh," exclaimed Victor, "what an unexpected reward." Master requested that after getting this bag, You should get familiar with what's inside as soon as possible, and you will need to catch the plane to Vane City tomorrow at noon. You will act as the new CEO of the Masters Branch Company, he emphasized. Is there anything else? Taking the briefcase and weighing it in his hand, Victor asked. I have already prepared a room for you and a fresh set of clothes. As for your luggage, it has already been sent to Vane City. If the young master have any further requests, then, the maids and myself are at your service, said George. Nothing really, just ask Lily to find me in my room after she finished her bath, said Victor, then left the study with the briefcase and ordered a maid to lead him to the room prepared for him. After washing and changing his clothes, Victor sat on a comfy chair in his room with a freshly brewed cup of premium coffee. Opening the briefcase George gave him, he started examining the documents inside. The first documents were a new identification card, a passport, and a school acceptance letter. When heirs leave the family, they would, more often than not, be given a fake identity for their protection. Influential families like his have many enemies. His new name will be Victor White. He will act as the new CEO of Horizons Media, a place he knew well from his previous life. It was also a branch of the mega multimedia production company his father runs. In addition to that, he has to start high school in about 2 months. After that there was a book called, A Guide to New Players, that explained everything from status, skills, and the major powers in the world. Next, there were many documents for different properties and estates inside the city, including a grand mansion. After skipping those, he took out a purple ornamented jade token. Looking at the rewards, Victor could only smirk. It seems his family truly values him now. It was probably his grandmother who commanded them to give him these, because after the ceremony, he noticed that his father and the patriarch were not sure what assignment to give him. So he guessed that they would have had to think about it for a few days at the very least. But now, after only taking the time he spent on the road, about 30 minutes, they decided to give him not only a complete company but also a high rank in the family. This purple token is an artifact, and having it meant that he is now a part of the True Bloods, the core members of the family. It is similar to a core disciple position in the martial arts sects. With this, he has no reason to fear his fiancée or his stepbrothers, as the family will side with him and protect him as long as he does not break their rules. Yet with it comes some troublesome responsibilities. It seems his grandmother began to like him, or maybe wants to keep a close eye on him, or a bit of both. It does not matter. Victor returned to the briefcase and continued to examine the documents one by one. They are all properties and resources allocated to him by the family. It seems his grandmother intends to test him. Well, that won't be a bad thing, he thought. In his previous life, Victor's position was not this good. After he barely survived the ceremony, the family ordered him to go to the same Vane City, but not as an heir, but as a small manager in his father's company, where he had to work for a few years. It was not bad, but he could not reveal his identity and was not given much power. It was probably a part of his father's efforts to protect him from his stepbrother's schemes. Additionally, he had to go to high school as a student of a commoner origin. While it was not that bad, it made him very tired, and he couldn't get any resources from the family to improve his strength and position. When he fell into deep trouble later, he had very few allies in and outside of the family helping him. A sudden knock on the door brought Victor back to the preset. Young master, it is me, may I come in? Lily's crystal voice sounded across the closed door. Chapter 16, How It Was Done. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Come on in. Hearing Lily's voice, Victor answered her, but kept his head down examining the documents in his hands. And after hearing the sound of her little footsteps entering the room, he raised his head to look at Lily, who had just entered the room, and stood gracefully waiting for her young master's commands. He had to swallow his saliva. In the morning he could see that she was beautiful despite the dust and dirt that covered her. But now he discovered that he underestimated her beauty. He could not stop staring at her snowy white skin, her dark black hair and her pretty face. She was wearing pink pajamas, probably prepared by the maids. It suited her very well, and although Lily did not have a curvy body shape, her slim stature suited her well. He had lived for a long time, but few of the beauties he knew rivaled her. But unfortunately for him, there are things he must do first, before he can devour her. I have to make her wear a veil. I can't let other men look at her," he thought. Victor, after being astonished by Lily's beauty for a brief moment, he quickly reminded himself to keep cool and be a good young master, so he coughed twice, covering his nose, as he felt the blood leaking. "You look pretty, now go, close the door." Lily blushed because of his words, and while keeping her head down in shame she turned around and closed the door. Her actions made her fail to see the bewildered look on Victor's face right now, whose nose started to bleed, and how he quickly took out a handkerchief from his pocket and stealthily wiped away the blood from his nose. Then coughed a few more times, hiding his embarrassment. Lily, hearing his cough, looked at him with concern and asked, "Young master, are you okay?" "I am fine." "Now come here and sit down, we need to talk." Then he pointed to the opposite sofa. Lily looked a little nervous, but she went and sat there. "Don't be nervous, I know what you are thinking about. But I will not sleep with you right now," Victor said, and that surprised her as she has already prepared herself. "Young master, are you in any way dissatisfied with me?" she asked while feeling a little aggrieved. "Don't ask stupid questions, or I will punish you," Victor replied with a smile. "It is just not the time yet, as both of us need to fully awaken our bloodlines first. Any nightly activities before that will have a detrimental effect on us," he explained while watching the anxious Lily becoming relieved. He wanted to awaken his bloodline during the ceremony by choosing a blood master or a dragon disciple class, as they had skills that can help him ignite or awaken his blood, but he ended up preferring to choose a different class. Now he has a grand plan for his and Lily's bloodline awakening, and she must be a virgin for it to succeed, and the same goes for him. "Then, may I ask the young master, why did you request for me to accompany you in your chamber at this late hour?" she asked in a cold voice. It seems she was really looking forward to sleeping with her young master. "It's not me who wants something," he said while holding his laugh. He seemed to have understood what she was thinking, and that made Lily blush even more. "Didn't you want to ask me something?" he asked. Yes, she seemed to have finally remembered what she wanted to ask him about. "It's about Guy's death," as he did not allow her to ask in the hall earlier. "Young master, about Guy," she began to question him in a low voice, but Victor interrupted her and asked, "Why did you want to kill him? Did you think I would believe your pathetic excuse at the hall? You were there to find a suitable chance to disturb his ritual and kill him, right?" That made Lily stand up and bow her head in shame. "Then no'd, young master, I am very sorry I lied to you and the elders," she said with a serious tone. "Guy was a monster, and there is a reason I wanted to kill him. It was because he killed my best friend for fun during one training session a year ago. He tortured her there and let us watch. Then he promised us that he will do the same to me and my sisters after the ceremony," she said with her tears dropping on the floors from the top of her flushed cheeks. "I had to avenge my sister and protect the others." Then she bowed deeply. "I am really sorry." Victor looked at her and then rebuked her. "When did I allow you to stand up? Sit down." She quickly sat down timidly. So Victor continued, "You don't need to be sorry for killing a monster like him, but needs to be very sorry for lying to me," he said. "I will forgive you this once, but don't ever do it again," he said with a cold tone. If Lily looked him in the eyes at this very moment, she would be shocked by how chilled they were. Then his tone became cheerful again. "Now, wipe off your tears." He didn't like the sight of her sad tears. "Do you want to know how Guy died?" he asked with a smile. Lily quickly used the cuffs of her pajamas to wipe her tears, then looked up at him with her red eyes and said in a firm tone, "May the young master enlighten me." Victor looked her deep in the eyes and said, "What I will tell you now, will not leave this room. Understood?" Lily quickly nodded her head in acknowledgement. "The pill Guy took should be the Misty Blood pill. Do you know anything about it?" he asked, but Lily shook her head. She has never heard of such a pill. Victor continued with a solemn look, "It is a very evil pill. To create it, you are required to refine 10 pure blood babies while they are alive." That made Lily feel a chill in her back and gasp for air. "They are monsters, from where would they get the bee?" she wanted to ask, but Victor beat her to the answer. "Guy's father should be Duke, the master of the Assassin's Hall, so it should be doable for him. "You have not completed your assassin training yet, right?" he asked Lily. She shook her head. "No, not yet, only the final test remains." But the Hall Master listened to Guy's request and delayed it till after ceremony. "Oh, so that's what happened." "Well, that means you don't know. It's just that the family sends its assassins on all kinds of missions. Some of them are to spy at and sometimes assassinate members from other families," Victor explained. "Then, would the family give orders to kill babies?" Lily's face turned white when she thought of that. She was trained as an assassin, and she was even made to kill someone before, but never a child. She wouldn't be able to do that. No, they wish they could, but there was an agreement between the major families many years ago. It stated that no assassination would be attempted at any family member before his ceremony. Victor reassured her, then continued. "So it is most likely Duke's idea. He probably kidnapped some low-level or illegitimate children here and there and kept a secret. Searching for someone with a pure bloodline is not an easy task. It probably took him many years. Perhaps he started this operation when Guy had just been born. But the one thing that puzzles me is from where did he get the recipe for it? It is a forbidden pill after all," he said with his hand holding his chin. Lily was a little shocked by such news. Yet she had to ask with concern, "Shouldn't we notify the family?" If the family were to be alerted, she might get into trouble. "No, not for now anyway. I have plans for him, and you don't need to worry. It will have nothing to do with you. Duke's end will be more miserable than his son's," he said with an evil grin. Then he continued, "When Guy took that pill, his bloodline purity increased. But his blood essence became heterogeneous, as it came from different sources, and probably none of them is from the von Weiss family. So they do not mix with Guy's original bloodline well. At the ceremony, the orb only samples the bloodline once, so it does not matter. However, when you kept looking at him, the orb kept going back to him. Just like when you keep pressing the same link in a smartphone, and that made the system retest his bloodline quite a few times," he said slowly. "Ah," Lily exclaimed, "so the orb found that he has multiple completely different bloodlines and they didn't belong to him, and that triggered an error and caused a bug. When the world rules fixed the bug, it removed the conflicting bloodlines altogether. So poor Guy lost all bloodlines, including his original one." Victor finished his explanation. "Young master, while I get the gist of it, I don't understand how this bug thing works." Lily tilted her head and stated, "You will learn about it in the future, but not now, it is still too early," he answered with a head shake. "And remember, not a word to anyone, understood?" he ordered. Lily nodded her head. "Understood," she confirmed. She is now full of reverence for her young master. "Now, for the second thing, I need you for. This happens to be a very important task," he said, as looked at Lily sternly. "Yes, young master," she answered nervously. He stood up, then walked to where she was sitting and put his hands on her shoulders. "I am feeling tired, so I am going to sleep now. However, as I am not used to the pillows here, you will have to be my pillow for tonight," Victor ordered the speechless Lily. And with that, he ruined his good image in her mind again. Chapter 17, Lily's Thoughts. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Lily does not remember much about her early childhood. She was sold to the von Weiss family at a young age. They took her with other children and began their training right away. They sent them to a huge camp on one of the archipelago's island. There were many children like her there. They were taught basic knowledge at first, like reading and writing, with some martial arts. Then when they seemed to have learned those, they would be castled to one of the family's numerous halls. Lily had a petite body, and a high aptitude in martial arts, so she was sent to the Assassin's Hall, where her suffering began. All the children in the Assassin's Hall had to suffer through very harsh training, where they even had them kill people and fight criminals, causing many of them to die early. Whenever one of the young family heirs comes to the hall on missions or for training, she would look at their princely look and yearn like every little girl, that someday one of them would take her away on a white horse. But she knew in her heart that these are mere dreams. She still persisted, hoping that one day she would finish this training and be able to roam the world. The worst day in her life came when the Hall Master's son Guy decided to create a special assassination unit under his command. So she and a few of her sisters were chosen because of their nice looks. Especially her. She could see the perverted look in Guy's eyes, so she made sure after that to always smear some dirt on her face so that she would not attract his attention. Guy was a monster. He enjoyed torturing them in various methods. Under the excuse of training them, they still persisted, hoping that one day this will be over. Until that day when Guy made Lily and her sisters watch as he brutally tortured one of them to death, saying that he is training their mentality. That girl was her best friend. He seems to have regretted killing that girl, but for the wrong reason, as he wished to sleep with her first. So he asked for permission from his father to sleep with the girls before their final test, as they will become agents of the family when they pass. The family will not blame him if a few trainees died. On the other hand, killing an agent of the family is not a small offense. But his father refused, telling him that he can do what he wants after the ceremony. As for the girls, he will delay their test. Hearing Guy brag in front of them about how he will fix every one of them, she made a decision. She is going to sacrifice herself for her sisters, as she was the best assassin amongst them. She is going to enter the ceremony and take Guy's life there where she might get a chance. So she volunteered to be one of the servants in the ceremony, but Duke refused, as he knew his son had his eyes on this girl. Left with no other choice, she took advantage of the situation on ceremony day and secretly boarded the ferry headed to the central island. She was prepared to die, and she will take Guy's life with hers. But she underestimated the family's preparation, as after reaching the ceremony hall she was caught by the guards and she had to fight with them, and although she was able to defeat many of them, more kept coming, but she was finally subdued by a strike from an elder who showed up out of nowhere. She knew she was going to die. But she did not want to, not before killing that monster. And just when she was planning to make her last struggle, someone grabbed and pulled her head, and then she heard his arrogant voice. "I like this girl," he said. Looking at the boy's charming face and grayish-purple hair, she felt her heart beating faster. "Is this my Prince Charming?" she thought, but then she shook her head. She should not hold much hope, she told herself. But to her surprise, this young master, who she did not know, was able to get her out of trouble with ease. And he even called her his own. After entering the hall, the young master made her sit on his lap. This made her feel very ashamed, but she had to persist. It will all end when she kills Guy. He asked her about her reasons. She felt ashamed as she had to tell him a lie, but she couldn't tell anyone about her objective. But somehow she was able to divert his attention to Guy, who was there staring at her with murderous eyes. Maybe he can help her, she thought. She has become his anyway. But the young master's reaction exceeded her wildest expectations. He did not get angry at her but gave her a weird method to kill Guy. That can't be true, can it? She thought. After starting the ceremony, he helped her sit in a place where she would be able to target Guy, so she decided to follow his crazy plan. If it failed, she will try after the chaos starts. She has heard that many people will die, so she can use the chaos to act at that time. But still, she held some hope in the corner of her heart. Maybe her young master's plan would work. The ceremony started and it was like something of a fantasy tale. She kept her eyes open despite the pain and stared at the Guy for 1 minute just as he told her to, and she could feel a wave of light going between her and Guy. Then after 1 minute, the pain was so unbearable that she was forced to close her eyes, and her ritual began. She succeeded, but that did not matter at that time. Only one thought was kept in her mind: to kill Guy. When she opened her eyes, she quickly started looking for Guy, who was there, dead on the floor, with blood rushing out of his 7 orifices. It worked. Her young master told her the truth. He did really help her. She looked at him and he looked at her and smiled. She fell in love at that moment and she knew it. After that, he stood against his family's interests and helped her again and again. It was all like a dream for her. She was ready to repay him with her body tonight. When he saw her, he was so astonished by her true beauty that his nose bled. She saw it, but she acted as if she did not see a thing. And then he forgave her for lying to him, and in the end, did not agree to sleep with her so that she can become stronger later. She does not know if he loves her, but she knows that he cares about her. Looking at the morning sun out of the window while feeling her young master's faint breath on her lap, she looked down at him who was drooling while using her thighs as a pillow, and smiled. She had decided, from this moment onward, she is his property, and no matter how he feels about her, she would spend every moment in her life in his service. Chapter 18, Punishment. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Victor woke up early in the morning at the sound of his phone ringing. He could feel Lily's thighs under his head and her hands caressing his hair. But he had no energy to open his eyes, so he could only utter a couple of words to Lily. You answer it. He was too sleepy to answer it himself, and there should be no one important on the other side. Good morning, madam. Yes, this is his phone. I am Lily, his personal maid. No, he is sleeping soundly in my lap right now. Victor briskly opened his eyes when he heard Lily. Cheat, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have let her answer, he thought. He quickly sat down and took the phone from Lily's hand, then shot her a threatening look while he greeted his mother. Yes, it was his mother on the phone. He should have called her the previous day to report his results, but he forgot. Ah, hello dear mother, he said. Now, you remember your mother? I guess you were too busy playing with that new maid of yours. His mother's angry voice sounded from the other side of the phone. It's not that. I just thought that father should have already told you my results, he explained. And? What about your father telling me? Does it have anything to do with you? Put that maid back on the phone. What was her name? Lily, right? I will talk to her. I don't want to hear my ungrateful son's voice, she said. Victor knew that his mother is a little upset with him, and no matter what he told her, he would not be able to please her. The only solution for such situations is the same they use on nuclear reactors, to let her cool down on her own. So he gave the phone to the surprised Lily and signaled her to talk to his mother. Lily quickly adjusted her mentality and answered Anne's rapid barrage of questions, most of them on how was Victor's health and if he was injured during the ceremony. Anne knew well that she does not have the right to know about the ceremony, but she had to make sure that her little boy was fine. And at last, after 15 minutes, Lily said goodbye respectfully and ended the call. Young master, your esteemed mother has ordered me to tell you that no matter what happens you should take good care of your health and that you should call her often. Not like your brother and sister, Lily reported. Is that all? He asked. Lily's face blushed as she said with her face down, she ordered me to take care of all your needs, no matter what is your request. Good, said Victor with a smile. Then we shall start with your punishment, he said. To the shocked Lily, young master, why? Lily asked with aggrieved eyes. First, you broke the family rules, escaped from the assassin's hall, and tried to sneak into the ancestral hall, so as your new master I have the responsibility to punish you, he said. Second, you lied to me, and third you told my mother that I was sleeping in your lap, and destroyed my good boy image in her mind. Without discipline, you will grow up to be a bad girl. Now, stand up, face the wall, and bend down, he ordered Lily, whose face turned white with fear but had to do what her young master ordered. And then he spanked her butt hard, but he didn't using his full strength. It was 10:00 when Victor got himself dressed, then went downstairs to order a late breakfast. But to his surprise, his father was already having a meal at the table in the kitchen. He seemed to have just arrived. George was the too, he serving behind his master. Good morning, father. Victor saluted his father, then sat down and ordered the maids to prepare some cereals for his breakfast. Theodore looked at Victor with a strange look in his eye. Is this still my coward son? He has some questions to ask him. Did you go to your grandmother's house yesterday? How did you convince her to help you? He asked. Theodore knew his mother was very stubborn, but his son was able to make her change her mind. He wanted to know, how did he do that? Is his son really that competent? I did go there. Grandmother seemed very impressed by my talents, so she promised to help me, said Victor while stuffing his mouth with a toast covered in butter. Like I would believe that, Theodore rebuked, then continued, When I got the call from her late last night I was very surprised. She granted you a true blood status. You know that your big sister had to survive a deadly dungeon in order to get that status. Your grandfather almost had a nervous breakdown as your grandmother rarely interferes with the ceremony," he exclaimed. Victor stayed silent and continued to stuff his mouth with food. "Where is that girl Lily? I heard you spent the night together," he asked after realizing that he wouldn't be able to get anything but lies out of Victor's mouth. "I am here, master." "Good morning," a crystal voice sounded. Then a beautiful well-dressed Lily entered the kitchen and saluted with an aggrieved look in her eyes. "Young master, why did you have to spank me so hard?" "I was barely able to change my clothes," she thought. She was wearing a black sundress, prepared for her by the maids. Theodore forgot to breathe for a second after looking at her. Yesterday, when he saw Lily in the hall, she was nothing special, just a little beauty, but now after she cleaned up, she was on a completely different level. Damn it, I should have taken her for myself. Maybe, he thought, then coughed twice to clear his throat, and stopped staring at her. He has an image to keep. Good, good, you are really fit to be my son's maid, he said with an appreciative look. Come then, help me and your young master pour some morning coffee, he said, wanting to change the subject. Lily nodded her head and then turned around and went to get 2 cups. Theodore could not help noticing a limp in her walk. She seems to be in pain. Damn you, Victor, he thought, then shot his son a murderous look. You took advantage of her as soon as you got here. Can't you have mercy on this little girl? Damn it, now it is too late, I can't take her. And with that, he abandoned his previous plans. Victor knew what Theodore was thinking about, and flashed a wide grin at his annoyed father. He did that to Lily on purpose. He had to make sure that the family thinks he had already slept with her. Theodore shook his head and thought with a sigh, that his son has fooled the entire family for the past few years. He seems to be a wolf in sheep's clothes, just like the rest of the family. He should take care of this son more in the future. He seems promising. Victor cleared his throat and interrupted Theodore's dark thoughts. Father, I want to remove the Assassin's Hall's soul mark from Lily, and put my own, as per family rules, he said. That is easy, Theodore said. Then he took out this golden token that hung on a chain around his neck. Theodore ordered Lily to give him her back. Then he pointed the token on her neck and activated some sort of command. A light shot from the ring and the spider tattoo on Lily's disappeared, leaving behind a very faint family crest. Now she has become ownerless, it's your turn. Use your identity jade to brand her, he said. The identity token is the one he was given yesterday. It is a low-ranking artifact with functions related to the family. Victor looked Lily in the eyes and she looked back at him, then nodded. Then she revealed her white nape before him. So he took out the purple jade hung around his neck and pointed it at Lily, and activated the branding command. A red light shot towards Lily, making the family crest flash before appearing, indicating that the owner has changed. Victor quickly made the crest disappear using his token. He didn't like its look on Lily's white neck. Now, no one in the family would be able to take her away from him. Chapter 19, The Flight. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. After breakfast, Victor had a brief discussion with his father, where he requested some documentation for Lily, so Theodore ordered George to prepare them immediately. After everything was ready, Victor left the house after saying goodbye to his father, who only seemed to be interested in giving Lily a goodbye hug. It's not that he still has thoughts about her, but with her bloodline and talent, she was the perfect daughter-in-law. He wants to see her give birth to his grandchildren fast. If they also turned up to be as talented as their parents, his rank in the family would become even higher. This made Victor suddenly remember something very important. He quickly went back into the house and talked to one of the maids, then returned with a veil and handed it to the astonished Lily. Cover your mouth with this. Your beauty is going to cause me a lot of problems, he said in an annoyed voice. But Lily, who quickly put on the veil while smiling, knew that he was very jealous and protective of her. But the veil was barely able to hide her beauty, as even with only her eyes showing, Lily was still a charmer. He could only sigh. His target was to live as a lucky young master. But with such beauty at his side, that will be much harder. It was noon when the black luxurious car stopped at the airport. This airport was built on an artificial island, near the coast of the central island. It was the only official way in and out of the archipelago. They did not have to wait for long to board the plane as it was a private jet, and they seemed to be the only passengers, as the allocations of the awakened players will not be over in a few days, so the others can't leave here yet. The beautiful flight attendants welcomed them and led each of them to a wide comfy chair to sit on. These chairs are so different from the ones in commercial planes. Here each chair is so wild, you can squeeze in it 3 people if you tried. And after fastening their seat belts, the plane shortly took off on time. Sitting on the comfortable chair, Victor could not help but yawn. He only slept for 5 hours last night. Then he looked at Lily, who was having difficulty keeping her eyes open. She slept even less than him, so he quickly stood up, took a blanket, and walked over to Lily's seat. Then to her and the flight attendant's surprise, he sat with her in the same chair and then put the blanket on both of them, then said, "I didn't sleep enough last night, and I need a good pillow, so I will use you," he said to the astonished Lily. Her young master is reaching new levels of shamelessness. She looked at the flight attendants, who had strange look in their eyes. "What are you all looking at? If any of you dares to disturb my young master's sleep, I will kill her," she warned. She sounded stern, but in fact, she was hiding her shyness. "You should sleep too, this is an order," Victor told her. "If I wake up to find that you are not asleep, I will punish you again," he said, and with that, he reclined the chair, then put his head on Lily's shoulder and dozed off. Poor Lily did learn her lesson the hard way. So she followed her young master's command and went to sleep immediately after giving the pretty attendants a threatening look. It was 6:00 p.m. when Victor woke up, and to his surprise, the situation between him and Lily has reversed. Now his head is resting on the seat's headrest, while Lily's head was on his shoulder. Feeling Lily's relaxed breath, it seems she was really tired, he thought. So he did not disturb her and looked around the cabin for some flight attendant to molest, but to his disappointment, he found none and the cabin was empty. Apparently Lily scared them away. Too bad, he thought. He wanted to flirt with some of them. Well, Lily will have to be punished again, it seems. He waited in silence for half an hour, using it to think about his next move. Vane City, a place full of memories. Back then, he had to take this plane with 10 others. And it was not a happy trip. The others kept taunting him. They were probably following someone's order. He will get his revenge, but it is not the right time yet. He was still too weak. His enemy was still not that strong at this time, but the forces behind him are. So he will have to blind them and act in the shadows. His first step would be to take care of their agent in Vane City, his enemy, his cousin. But that will have to wait until school starts, as there would be a chance for a hidden attack then. But he will need some preparations. He did hear of a dungeon that was discovered shortly after he arrived there. Maybe he can use it to level up a little and find some treasures that can help at the same time. Suddenly the lights in the cabin turned on automatically. It seems we are going to land soon, so he closed his eyes pretending to be asleep. As in this moment, Lily opened her beautiful eyes and discovered, to her dismay, that her head was on her young master's shoulder. First, she blushed, but then she panicked. What if the young master got angry? So she slowly raised her head and looked around, making sure there was no one in the cabin, then slowly adjusted herself so that Victor's head naturally fell onto her. Victor played along and his head fell again onto Lily's shoulder. So she breathed a sigh of relief, but this relief did not last, as in the next moment she heard her young master mocking voice. "Did you really think you can trick me?" Victor asked while keeping his head on her shoulder. "Sorry, young master, I did not intend to disturb you," Lily said in shame. "I am not disturbed. We will probably be landing soon." Victor raised his head, then looked Lily in the eyes. She seems to have rested well, he thought, as her eyes are no longer bloodshot. So he stood up and started to stretch his limbs while watching Lily tied up the blanket with a smile on her face. She thought she got away with it, he thought with an evil smile. Before Victor could implement his evil thoughts, the captain's voice came through the internal speakers, requesting the passengers to return to their seats and fasten their seat belts. As the plane was about to land, through the window, the sparkling lights of Vane City could be seen. Chapter 20. Arrival. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Getting off the plane, Victor hugged Lily from the back like a perverted young master and whispered in her ear, "From now on I will start to act like an arrogant young master who fears the strong and abuses the weak, so play along with me," he ordered her. Lily was surprised, but she understood him and nodded her head. "Young master, you genuinely like to abuse the weak," she whispered in a faint voice. But Victor acted as if he heard nothing. They walked straight from the runway to the street outside of the airport, as this airport was operated by the family and he came in a private family jet. He didn't have to wait for his bags as he didn't have any. All of his luggage was sent to the mansion. As for Lily, she had none and she needs to go shopping ASAP. At the door, there was a luxurious car waiting for them. It held the logo of Horizons Media, so Victor recognized it at once. It was sent by his new company, so he walked towards it with Lily. Standing next to the car was a young driver with oily combed hair. When Victor approached him, he quickly looked at a photo in his hand and then walked forward and saluted Victor. "Mr. Victor White, I presume?" he asked to make sure. Victor nodded his head a little in confirmation. "Hello sir, my name is Leo. I am a driver in your company. I was tasked to pick you up by the vice president." "The driver? Why were you so late?" "You should have driven this car through the runway to get me," said Victor arrogantly, putting his hands on his waist. "How dare you make me walk?" "And where is that vice president? I heard she is a beauty, and even my father liked her. Why is she not here to welcome me?" he continued while looking around as if searching for someone, making Leo wonder if this new CEO was an idiot or just arrogant. As for Lily, she looked at him strangely, but then quickly remembered what he told her before, and decided to play her part as well. "Don't be angry, young master, he can't enter there, he is just doing his job. Let's quickly go and see the mansion your father gifted you. Didn't you say it was very grand and promised to show me around? As for the vice president, you will be able to see her tomorrow anyway and maybe punish her for her disrespect," she said as if she was appeasing a child, making Victor nod in agreement and seem to repeat the word punish silently with an evil smile. Then Lily turned to the frowning Leo and bowed slightly. "Sorry Mr. Leo, but my young master is usually on a tight schedule. He did not mean any offense." She stepped forward and said, "Let me introduce myself, my name is Lily, I am a young master's assistant." Looking at Lily, Leo was startled. He didn't pay attention to this veiled girl earlier, but now after he looked at her he could tell that she must be a super beauty. Too bad he couldn't have a clear look at her face, as the thin veil only revealed her beautiful eyes. He was able to pull himself back together and stretched his hand, offering Lily a handshake. With a bright smile flashed on his face. "Hello, Miss Lily." But he could never touch her, as Victor interrupted him rudely while shooting him an angry look. "What are you waiting for? Do you want this young master to beg so you can open the door for him? Do you want to be fired so bad? Why are there no work ethics no more?" he mumbled. Leo was a little annoyed. This morning the vice president told him personally that the new CEO of the company would arrive this afternoon. She gave him the task of being the CEO's driver for the time being. When he got Victor's information he was flabbergasted. The new CEO turned out to be a teenager, so he inquired about him from the VP, but she did not tell him much, so he did his usual information gathering the old way, and after collecting gossips from here and there, he got a general idea. It seems this Victor is the son of the owner of their parent company, and he was here to attend high school. So his father gave him a company to train his hands. When he woke up this morning, Leo thought that this was his chance. If he can please this guy and gain his trust, he is set for life. Now, it seems like this young master has something wrong in his head, and this girl is taking advantage of that. "No, I have to find a chance to get in his shoes too," Leo thought while opening the back door of the car and waiting for the passengers to get in. Victor looked at Leo's frowning face with some amusement. This guy is as opportunistic as ever, he thought. He met Leo in his past life too, and he knew that Leo was not the simple guy he seems to be. But Victor is not going to throw him away. On the contrary, he is going to put him to good use. He is not a bad guy anyway. Lily entered the car first and dusted the seat for Victor, who entered the car arrogantly, but due to his weird posture, he hit the car's roof with his head, so he screamed and shot Leo a murderous look. But Lily quickly appeased to sit down. Leo acted as if he saw nothing and professionally closed the door, went to his seat, and started the engine, then inquired about their destination, so Lily quickly gave him the address of Victor's new mansion. After the car drove for about 5 minutes, Leo started to adjust the mirror casually, wanting to use it to sneak a peek at Lily, but what he saw made him almost hit the car in front of him, but as an old driver, he was able to get hold of the car pretty quickly. It was Victor who ordered Lily to massage his injured head, then he gave her the signal to kiss his injury so it can heal. So the blushing Lily removed the veil and quickly pecked her young master on the forehead, before putting the veil back on, hiding her blushing face. This was seen by Leo, who after stabilizing the almost wrecked car, did not dare look anymore. Damn, this chick is so pretty. He thought, why does she have to be with this idiot? It's like putting a fresh flower in cow dung. Very rich cow dung. He really began to hate this new CEO. But he quickly reminded himself to be patient. He has to get close to this young master, so maybe someday. A perverted smile slowly appeared on Leo's face. They reached the mansion pretty quickly. While it is called a mansion, in fact, it was a complex of 4 huge buildings built on top of a hill. It contains everything a young master might need, from a pool to a gym and a separate building for the servants. It was also surrounded by lush evergreen forest. Leo could not help but swallow his saliva. Damn, if this is just his son's mansion, how rich the father. As for Victor, he looked at this complex strangely. When he arrived at this city back then, this entire hill was burnt to the ground. He wondered what happened, so he decided to task Lily with surveying the property. Just to be sure, after the car stopped next to a closed gate down the hill, a guard went out of his booth to check the visitors. He spoke with Leo, then looked at the back seat where Victor and Lily were sitting and nodded in respect before quickly retreating to call his boss. After a few minutes, a middle-aged woman came out of the gate. She seems to be the manager here. She was dressed in a dark blue long dress and her brown hair was arranged in a bun. On her face, Victor could see the signs that she was a beauty when she was younger. And he could immediately tell that she must be a player. She just came from the top of the hill and didn't seem to be out of breath at all. So he activated his appraisal skill. Name, Hilda. Level, 21. Class, Maid Plus. Abnormal status, Slave. Weak. Authority, 3. Strength, 29. Agility, 25. Intelligence, 30. Luck, 15. Charm, 9. Order, 15. Skills, I for talents, S. Passive. Spotless cleaning, A. Dagger arts, B. She must be one of my father's servants, but I have never seen her before. Her status is average, but she has some interesting skills, thought Victor before leaning out of the window to address her. Are you the manager here? Why are we not inside yet? This young master is hungry and wants to have a good meal, Victor said with a loud voice. Hilda frowned a little, but after a minute she recognized him as the new master of this mansion, according to the information sent by the family, so she quickly reacted and greeted him respectfully. I just wanted to make sure it was you, young master. My name is Hilda, I am the manager here, and the master has already informed me of your arrival, she said. Then she bartered at the guard. What are you doing? Quickly open the gate for the young master. The guard, who was surprised, quickly responded by pressing a button on a bulky device in his hand, and the large gate opened a second later. Hilda entered the car with them and sat next to Leo, who after greeting her, started to drive uphill, towards the central building.